Welcome back, everyone, to the Movie Date Podcast, a podcast for people who like movies and don't want to be too smug about it. I am your host, Rob, and here with me is a new co-host, I think it's fair to say, Mr.
Matt, or Matty, whichever. I think we'll go with Matt.
Oh, God.
I think I went with Matthew as a professional name, but Matt I think will work.
I feel like you almost quit being the host right there.
Yeah,
like, Matty, I gotta go. God.
I wasn't prepared. We'll just, I'm Matt. I will be co-hosting. I think this is going to end up being comfortable for us.
Yeah.
And, we've already got a few things lined up, like today.
Yeah, baby. How was your week, Matt?
It's going okay. I definitely we've been trying to get together, and I'm glad we're finally back in the studio.
Yeah. So the last thing that we were gonna do, the thing we were planning on doing, we're still planning on doing, was we were gonna do the great BVS debate, which I've been stewing on for nigh on 3 years now.
And especially
I've had my fill of the memes. I've had my fill of the dumb YouTube video essays by people with slick editing skills, but no real arguments.
Will be finally brought to the light. You will be like, all right, it's time. I feel like I'm giving you the avenue to finally talk about it.
Because whenever I broach the subject, I'm like, oh, that movie was terrible. And I was going to go, was it? Was it terrible?
It's like, all right, now you sit down for a second. I've got my notes. You just pull out a very messy spinal notebook. Just like, don't tell you what's going on about
with my madman scribblings in there. And I just, it feels like it's been overdue for me to get it out. And I actually, you know what? Here's the reason. Is like, as you're an actor, Matt's an actor, listeners.
I do.
And I like film criticism in general, but I feel like film criticism as of the internet age has become very lazy and very uninteresting, period. Because the things that people think are criticisms are no longer criticisms. They've just become like weird subjective tropes that we've decided are good or bad.
I think that's fair on some level. It depends on if you have some popularity or a following.
And it depends on that's true.
Or if you have an audience you're not gonna say pandering to, but if you have an audience that has an expectation based on your personality.
Say pandering
too. My film criticism, I think as I talked about in the last episode, once we have that out, is I'm a very fair kind of glass half full critic. I always try to find the most positive things in something and kind of break it down into parts, because I feel like criticism cannot be.
I honestly do.
Well, you want to give people credit, and you want to give people credit for the things that are good in something, because they
worked hard. It's hard to make a bad movie.
Well, it's like if people talk about. Yeah, it's work. It is hard work to make a bad movie. It's hard work to make a good movie because
it's almost impossible to make a good movie.
Yeah, well,
that's like little criticisms that have cropped up in the internet age. Especially around. We don't just talk about blockbusters, but whenever last year came around, we saw most of the big blockbusters, even some of the ones we didn't want to, because I was like, we should talk about this because it seems like it's ripe for content and it could be interesting. Whether or not I think we did Jurassic World 2,
right?
Which I was pretty sure I wouldn't like,
right?
And we kick it pretty hard, but I kick it hard because I think it's a genuinely not a very good movie.
Right?
But certain things around blockbuster time have come out if there's product placement in your movie, is it a bad movie? And I was like, knowing how expensive movies are to make, if you have to put a Gillette shaver for half a frame into one of your shots.
How many indie filmmakers would have loved to have get money back from Lay's, having some potato chips in the background? We'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll be eating Lay's in this scene.
Yeah, or in a particular in a lot of blockbusters, especially if your hero kills somebody. That becomes a criticism,
right?
But is it a criticism, or is it you kind of placing your morality into the character?
Well, it's kind of, and I guess we'll be talking a lot about that come BVS, but it's really when going to talk about.
That's a huge thing that pisses me off to no end with that movie.
It's the Batman
thing.
We'll get into it, but it's the idea that
it's not in. But I noticed that it touches every other big, not just superheroes, but every blockbuster movie.
That's fair.
I remember reading a critique of Aquaman. I don't know if you saw Aquaman.
I still have not seen Aquaman.
Yeah, me and Ryan really liked it, and Zach thought it was a lot of spectacle, but whatever. I thought it was quite fun, and one of the harshest critiques I read of that movie was he's a hero who solves all of his problems with violence, and I was like, every superhero movie is a guy who solves his problem with violence.
If there's a superhero who doesn't punch something, Well, what was I watching?
Yeah, exactly.
I need
To a degree.
I need
It
catharsis from adventure. I mean, it's the same with Indiana Jones. You know, Indiana Jones spends 4 movies, I guess, just punching and killing unlikable people.
Sure.
You know, Nazis and other sorts.
Yeah, and
all,
they act
all the
as-
way through, and
Yeah.
it's like, but this is okay
That's
because
why we watch it.
It's pulp. It's pulp heroism.
Yeah.
It's and then, I mean, we can go into. I mean, that's a whole discussion
I guess,
about the
and some
nature
of it
of
is,
violence.
and some people say, like, well, it's all in the way you present it, the tone that you present it in. The tone that the Indiana Jones presents its violence is different than like a BVS or like a Taxi Driver or any Clint Eastwood movie or something like that.
It's just like, wouldn't it? Todd Phillips, the director for Joker film coming out, I think, and I believe he said this on Twitter, and I'm not sure, said like, in like you guys are talking about the violent nature of this character, but you don't bring up that criticism for John Wick.
Yeah, because John Wick makes it. Like,
John Wick is a pulp cartoony character in a world that is hyper stylized. And is doing is doing gun fu and gun martial arts.
By the way, have you seen the clips of Keanu Reeves going on the YouTube videos going through the gun range with his
I need to, because that sounds
it's incredible.
But it's
that guy gets a lot of shit for some bad movies, but like that guy is a true action hero.
Bill and Ted 3. We'll see. We'll see how those chops stand up.
He did those John Wick movies for very little because the directors wanted them to be like the best stunt people and the best action sequences in like modern action movies.
No, they wanted to be
delivered.
these sharp, very like John Woo 2.0 kind of thing.
Yeah, like the Raid or something.
Yeah, like, oh yeah. I mean,
and I would also argue that they do a good job of making John Wick not a nice. You would not look at John Wick and say that's a nice guy.
Right. He's a superhero. No, he's not a superhero. He's seeking vengeance.
He's the best character among the people in those movies.
Right.
But like he's still a bad dude.
Well, and I think going at
but the Joker
again,
is
tone.
Yeah.
Tone is like, well, you know, to Mr. Phillips and the production crew, the tone they're wanting to get at the film, and of course I haven't seen it, it's not out yet, is very super serious and very hyper realistic, while the world of John Wick is a world that is not realistic. It is a neon coded pulp graphic novel, like video gamey kind of world, and it's meant to be that.
Yeah,
it's going back to our discussion we talked about Quentin Tarantino last time. I wouldn't call
it doesn't ever quite feel like a real world, which is why the violence is kind of okay. But Once
Kill
Upon a
Bill,
Time in Hollywood is kind of a real world, so the violence felt less cool to me.
Is more impactful, and then but something like Kill Bill, I don't think is and I'm using big podcast finger quotes, violent.
No, he's not.
It's bloody. But, you know, they're chopping limbs off and they're squirting out like ketchup.
Easily the silliest of his violent movies.
Right, because it's meant to be hokey and cartoony and like samurai films and wuxia and all that.
And there's like a harsh... Then the violence in those movies is pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Like the part where like Uma Thurman yanks the girl's eye out.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. She plucks the eye out. Clear.
And I
blinds
think
that person.
And this will probably since we're talking about film criticism, the first piece of movie news is about film criticism in a way. There's a lot of hoopla around Joker, especially, and the consensus seems to be this is a movie about like nihilistic incel people going crazy and killing people, and I'll sort of be the first to say that saying that like it heroizes its character. I don't find this argument to be particularly compelling, and I'll tell you why. Because I can already see you don't agree with me.
I'm a hoop list in this situation, but I had other reasons. I was suspicious about the intention for this movie, and not to be suspicious. Apparently, I should say up front before I go into my personal. In terms of current feelings about it, and I will see it because I don't want to be ignorant about it.
And apparently
it is a movie in its own right and is not trying to project a point of view as much as tell a character study.
Exactly.
But I will talk about intention.
Sure.
But go ahead.
And I think that, first of all, I'm glad Todd Phillips makes things that are like he started off doing the Hangover movies, and it seemed like he could have just stayed in that lane for forever. But then he started doing movies like War Dogs, and like now he's doing something like this. I'm glad he's taking chances because this is certainly a risky movie. And he said he wanted to sneak a very interesting sort of like dark drama under the sort of the hood of a comic book movie,
right?
And the reason he says that is like he wanted to, and I don't agree with this, but he said I wanted to sneak a good movie into the comic book movie genre, to which I would kind of say,
And
go fuck yourself a little bit.
That was my original problem with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I said this before in the last one. I can't recall. It's been a bit. But what made me raise my eyebrow a lot to this is that it feels like this movie is disdainful of its property. Like, it's like, oh, we really love this character, but it comes from this comic book, and that's cringy and weird and childish. But the clown character is really cool, and we don't want it in there anymore. And I'm like, you can't just ask for like the full salad and just say, oh no, I don't want the full salad. I don't want
the guy who dresses as the bat. I just want
I want the guy who dresses as a clown who who has become an icon for projected, like you said, nihilism and societal. Well, of course, the great memes of it. This is a society,
and
it just makes me laugh every time.
Yeah, and I think that I think part of it comes down to, one, I don't like the idea that comic book movies are ruining movies or whatever. Like, there's a lot of directors who say things like, I don't like superheroes. Like, Steven Spielberg once famously said, like, this is like 16 years ago or something, like, superhero movies will be extinct in a few years. And like that was like, that was, which is so not true.
So not true.
Because like superhero movies kind of sustain the rest of the industry now.
Right.
Like, because Aquaman made $1 billion, Warner Brothers gets to make a Joker or gets to make any number of like their indie dramas,
and Suicide Squad will come back with James Gunn and hopefully, and they've got Birds of Prey.
Yeah, I was gonna use like Disney or something like Infinity War is the highest gross, or Endgame is the highest grossing movie.
We talked about all this a lot.
Yeah, and I wanted to be like, oh, and because of that, they'll use that money to make other things. I was like, wait, no, they won't. They only do Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars now. So like that's not quite analogous.
It's going to be whatever is going to come through, like we talked about before, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
In terms of their original programming.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah,
and so my point is
I'm
like,
sure we'll talk about
I don't like the disdainful attitude towards like, oh, comic book movies, that's for the plebs. I'm an auteur. But then to like take a character that you're just like, but this character can be different. It's like it feels insincere. Yeah.
And then I also felt that it felt very self-important.
Yeah.
It definitely reeks of pretentiousness to me.
Yeah.
I know that's an easy word to toss around.
Yeah, and as soon as I heard him say like, I wanted to sneak a good movie into the comic book genre, there was a little part of me that was like, go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
And then there was also another part where he said he says I take a lot of, like every comic book director, I take pieces from this comic book in this comic book. So when he says it's not necessarily a direct adaptation of anything, it's just sort of like my own story, in the same way that like Iron Man is Jon Favreau's version of Iron Man.
But it's got the original origin
Joaquin
in there.
Phoenix is quite proud of his work here, and it's got some largely good reviews. Yep. And most of the bad reviews do feel quite politically motivated, in the sense that they're like, these are movies about incel, violent lone wolf guys in a society that's already kind of played with them. Society. Is this what we want? And to that, I would say, well, do we want war movies in a society where we've been at war in Afghanistan for 18 years? And I would say largely yes, because war movies are a great way.
Well, it's a contemporary reality.
Yeah, and war movies are a great way to hammer home anti-war messaging. I feel like it's probably going to be a good movie. I feel like when I see it, the justifications for violence will be properly framed as, this guy is not someone you should idolize, and he is
it's a Fight Club thing. At least it should be.
No, I would argue Fight Club probably would make a better argument for like, they're bad people, but the reasons they're bad are clearly defined. Where I think this one's going to be even like more negative in a way. What I would say is, I'm all for seeing movies about bad people. Like people that we're not supposed to like, and like we go and watch horror movies, or serial killer biopics about like Ted Bundy,
right? Because
we want to see it. So,
Mindhunter is a really great show on Netflix, and it's some of the most compelling characters. These character actors who actually play serial killers, real life serial killers.
Yeah, and I have no problems with that, and I don't think Todd Phillips is glorifying violence. I think it's usually a very small minority of like people on like the uber far left. Who I say uber far left because they're not really far left. Usually, like if you look at, I don't want to talk politics too much, but usually when these people vote, they tend to vote in a very centrist-y Democrat way, not like a Bernie Sanders-y kind of way. And most of the people who are like far left people don't really care much for the social justicey message. They focus more on like an economic type of populism. So like I don't feel like this is representative of a vast number of people, which I'm not saying that there isn't a way to criticize this movie. I'm sure there is, but I personally don't like that argument isn't that incredible. Like the argument of like when I read negative reviews, it was like, it's a good movie, but should we like it? And I was like, that's fun, but don't give the movie a bad review because like a weird between the lines message. Is that the fault of Joaquin Phoenix? Is he's doing a job? He's being paid money to act to do a role.
So from the other,
and he said he fell in love with the role by the end of it.
You spend enough time in something like that. I mean, so on the other side of that, at least talking about why I understand that criticism, at least.
Give me your pitch, and then we'll move on.
So, while trying to make it brief about that and trying to keep it as apolitical on my end as possible,
sure. I'm a noted social democrat, by the way. I'm not shitting on people for leftist politics or anything.
And I'm a noted film critic. I understand the idea of worry about these things. And again, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before about like with the Marvel, the MCU thing and like Star Wars and all that, is you get a lot of people who when you want to criticize something for like story or criticize something for other elements, you accidentally align yourself with people also being like, yeah, I agree. Also, the women. Also, all these other
Captain Marvel because there's women.
Because there's women in it. I don't like this because of this progressive stuff. You must be on the same side as me. And it's like, no. You are ruining discourse because
I did not like Captain Marvel. I had no problem with the fact that she was a woman in the movie or any of that.
Well, I think also going with Joker here, it's like, I'm sure also it will be a good character study movie and Joaquin's going to do a fabulous job. Yeah. However, there are going to be people who are going to take that imagery and do something subversive and illicit with it. I mean, that's not a prediction of action, but it is a prediction of accidental intention.
Sure.
And so no, that should not stop you from putting on a movie or putting on a production or playing a song or something like that.
It's definitely one of those things. It's like it's an unintended consequence.
Well, yeah.
If Todd Phillips had to like write an extra scene to show how extra bad this guy is, it might harm the movie. It make it less from a great movie to a good movie or something.
And I think that while yes, there is a difference between criticizing something's content versus its accidental intention. There's probably a better word for that than I'm using right now, but it's coming off the cuff, is that it is fair in the realm of criticism, I think, to say, is this necessary now? And this whole idea of like, it is worthy enough to say like, why though? In a time when everyone feels a little bit, we're all feeling a little nuts and we're all feeling a little scared and everyone's a little off kilter and we all feel like we're in the bad some people feel like we're in the bad timeline.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like I think people see this and there's kind of like it feels unnecessarily like a cynical thing to put on people, and it could stress people out about this. And I agree with that, and I think that's fair criticism. However, I'm wanting to hold off my full opinions on it until I see the film proper, because I also believe in like I want to see the product of something before I say this is what its intention is. And obviously, yes, and I don't think Mr. Phillips is weaponizing a film for this, obviously.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
I'm all about like filmmaker intention. I think that's a very like it's one of the pieces of film
art intention in general.
Yeah, I think that's a piece of film criticism that's sadly lacking. Is you talk about like, oh, why does X and such do this in this person's movie? Like, well, what do you think his intent, the filmmaker's intention is? I think that's probably as fair a criticism as I've heard for that. I think we'll have to just wait and see like what it actually is. I would imagine the best way to counteract this stuff is by like, I think Warner Brothers came out and said like, made a very sober like press release about it. It's like, we support the movie, we support the director and the actor and everyone involved in it. It was truly a labor of love. The movie does not endorse violence, but rather shows how a neurotic and twisted person could come to embrace violence, much in the way that like someone like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver is definitely,
which and that and King of Comedy all seem to be like, and I think again. That's the exact right thing to say, and this movie has every reason to exist. It's just the current time when we're becoming more aware of certain levels of radicalism and people making threats and people saying, our time is coming and we're going to do something. Yeah. It feels
a bit too much of a love letter to the alt-right.
It's a little, again, unintentional. Obviously, it's not made to be a weaponizing factor, but it does feel like...
Because I imagine the Joker wouldn't care if you were a member of the alt-right. I think he'd rather kill
Joker,
you just the same.
The Joker as a character does not politically align. I do know he hates Nazis from that one Marvel crossover where he meets Red Skull and is like, I'm an American. I may be a villain, but I'm an American villain. I ain't working with some Nazi. Yeah. And I'm like, but you take what you will about the character. Again, the film is going to be the film, but I think that it is fair that people feel nervous about it because it does feel not like a mirror of our time, but maybe an untimely sort of thing. Like when V for Vendetta came out, how quickly the image of the Guy Fawkes mask became this element of the political movements and social movements of the time.
Sure.
I think people are worried that it's like, will this be something to that effect?
Ironically enough, Alan Moore doesn't like V for Vendetta, thinks it's not political enough. But
I thought he was straight up anarchist.
I think Warner Brothers and I think Todd Phillips, there was like some charity they're doing where like if you buy, like it's like buy an extra, where like if you're going with a group of friends, if you buy one extra, they will take that money and dedicate it to like also like charities that are like trying to get at risk teens and mark antisocial behavior and get people mental health and stuff. So like
I dig that.
Their reaction is as good as can be, and I guess people are allowed to have their sort of like filmy political opinions about it. I honestly just want the movie to be good, and I
want a good experience.
I'm pretty sure everyone involved wants the same thing. Let's move on to. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan, Matthew?
I am not a fan, but I've not read any Tolkien. I am not a big fantasy guy.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Come back. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, he's coming at me. He's gonna. No, I liked the films, the original Peter Jackson films. They are some of the most perfect. It's amazing he was able to do it. Coming from what Peter Jackson had worked on before, being kind of a B kind of horror guy. He did The Frighteners, which is a movie I really enjoy. He did Dead Alive or Brain Dead, which is a wonderfly gory, over-the-top dumb movie.
Like Beautiful Creatures?
Flatliners, I think is one. Did he do Flatliners? No, it was Beautiful Creatures. Yeah. And then he did The Frighteners and all that. And then, he got Lord of the Rings. It was just like, all right, I guess you're getting Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And then I think part of what
it's weird that he got those movies.
Yeah.
Because he was originally doing a King Kong movie. And then the 1999 Godzilla came out, and they said, "Oh, that didn't people didn't like that as much." So maybe put that one on the back burner. And he's like, "Oh, what about this?" And he had this movie for the Lord of the. It was 2 movies for Lord of the Rings, and he showed it to an executive, and some executive like, "Well, aren't there 3 books? There should be 3 movies." So apparently, they really liked the script or something.
Yeah, because they were like, "We'll give you all the money for that."
Yeah, the scripts apparently, must have been very good, and like he shot all those movies at the same time.
Yeah,
they went to New Zealand for like a year and 2 months.
And I think the part of it, and we'll get to this, what we're talking about is New Zealand ended up being the heart of the movie in a lot of ways, other than the performances and the wonderful score. That was
Howard Shore.
Yeah. Or James Shore. I can't remember his name.
Howard Shore.
Howard Shore. Thank you. Yeah. His score, just sounds like that book.
To this day, he says it's the best thing I've ever done, and I'll never do anything better. And he's not wrong. And I feel like Peter Jackson.
I don't want to put him to that, but you made a masterpiece of a score.
Peter Jackson didn't even kind of know what he had until even after he was done. Like the Hobbit movies came out 7-8 years after it or whatever, and not as good. I like them for what they are.
I'll
to
be
a
honest,
degree.
I didn't bother watching them.
Really?
No.
They're okay. It goes in orders of goodness. It goes, I think, 2, 1, 3. So the second one is the best. The first one's all right.
I hear people say that also about The Lord of the Rings as well.
No, it's.
But I think they are good.
But it's inverse. So the best Lord of the Rings movie is Return of the King.
That's interesting. I've heard people say opposite, but those are people.
No, they're wrong. They're dumb idiots.
That's why it won all the Oscars.
And made one of the first movies in a while to make $1 billion before that became like
every film had to make $1 billion.
Yeah, it was for a while. It was the third highest grossing.
A24.
For a while, it was the third highest grossing movie of all time.
It's so
for a long time. It feels so quaint now, but like
each of those films, and I think it was one of the last films to really like. It is one of, when you talk about spectacle blockbusters, true epics.
Still holds up.
It's going to hold up forever.
Whenever the Balrog shows up and fights Gandalf, I'm still like, it still looks amazing.
The lighting, everything. It's amazing because they balanced the new, very new CGI that they were able to use, again, like Spielberg, use the lighting, use everything to make sure
with
it still looks good.
practicality and practical effects.
And all those makeup effects, all that wonderful,
which is sadly
that wonderful
lacking.
Silicon and everything.
Which is lacking from like The Hobbit. The Hobbit is a lot more green screeny,
a lot more CGI.
A lot more a lot of people in mocap suits CGI'd over. Some of it looks good, some of it doesn't. I would say they're like, if you love the Lord of the Rings movies, you'll probably like the Hobbit movies, and it'll be like, it's okay.
That's fair.
But
why are we talking about?
But there was a part. There was a part. I know you're looking at the time, trying to get me to move faster. The reason is because he said if I had he made the Hobbits like a lot more green screen and a lot more 3D. He had said for the Lord of the Rings, like if I had those tools at my disposal, I would have done that. And I'm like, I don't know if I wanted like a Hobbitized version of like it's a little bit of that. I think Peter Jackson's a better director than George Lucas is.
I think those films show the test of time, and I understand the idea of like, if I could have, and it's like we all just need to be like, Pete, thank you. Weta went on to do. I mean,
he made Weta.
He made Weta, and it's like next to like Industrial Light and Magic.
That was the only other one. Was Industrial Light and Magic?
It's ILM and
VFX
Weta,
company.
and that's it. And I don't know if you've seen his documentary, this World War I documentary, where he used all that technology to take all that old World War I footage and readjust it to like a modern style film. It is incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, I like his remake of King Kong. And I even like The Lovely Bones.
I never saw Lovely Bones. Heard mixed reviews about that. King Kong, the first half of that movie is a giant, ridiculous, violent fest, and I love it. It's just he gets away
too
with
long on that
so
boat,
much.
Though. Way too long on that boat.
Yeah, way too much on that. Way too much dialogue.
But that three-way T-Rex fight is worth the price of admission, baby.
People are just getting thrown around, getting eaten.
It's a nihilistic nightmare.
Yeah,
nobody makes it out alive. It's horrible.
Well, I mean, it's like when
a guy gets eaten by slugs.
Andy Serkis gets eaten by some slugs.
Gollum himself.
It's great, man. He gets away with some PG-13 gore. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Also, I don't promote violence, but if you do good violent movie stuff, especially with giant monsters,
I love you.
I'm all in. I love
you forever.
I love me some carnage.
So the reason is Amazon apparently. I'm going to throw around some numbers. Could be wrong. If they are wrong, feel free to.
You're going to throw around those numbers.
Hit me up on Facebook and let me know what an idiot I am. It doesn't matter. Amazon bought the rights. They've already greenlit it for several seasons. Cast it a budget of I think well over $500 million, based on a prequel to the Lord of the Rings. Based on the
prequel.
Based on the Silmarillion and the rise of Morgoth and the fall of Morgoth, and it ends with the last alliance against Sauron.
Yeah, the Sauron rises.
Yeah, and we've gotten some local casting news.
The only person I saw was Will Poitier.
I know who you're talking about, the kid who was going to play Pennywise but did not play Pennywise. Will Poulter, who we talked about. Midsummer last. He was in Midsummer. Oh yeah, that's right.
He was in Bandersnatch on Netflix from Black Mirror.
I haven't seen it yet, but
he is a very unique and very good actor.
Yeah.
I enjoy him.
He's in The Revenant.
Yeah. He's kind of one of those kind of interesting gawky character actors like Caleb Landry Jones, who
he's got a weird face.
Yeah,
weird face, man. But it works for him.
Hey, in the world of acting, that's a boon. Sometimes that'll get you a long way.
And I think that I am stoked. They say they want it to rival Game of Thrones, so I'm like, yeah, man, give me some Tolkien-y goodness.
Sure, that's fine.
It's amazing how much money the Lord of the Rings made, just on video games and card games, and toys,
Shadow of Mordor game.
Yeah, all those things.
It's a blast.
It was like our Star Wars. It became such a giant income that Warner Brothers and New Line were like, we got to keep this going forever.
Well, that's the thing was I think we talked about it last time. Some my friends who grew up with Tolkien grew up with The Lord of the Rings because they read it because their parents were big Tolkien fans and all that. Or they
Stephen
were like,
Colbert loves him some Tolkien.
yeah, my dad was a big Tolkien fan. That's how I got into that. But I never read it. Never got into the culture. I didn't know about it
I
until
read
the
all of them
movies
except
came
the
out.
Silmarillion, because everyone says the Silmarillion is just like an encyclopedia.
Well, it's almost. It sounds like it's like the first half of the Bible. Like it's the ecclesiastical texts.
Yeah.
It's like here's who begat this, who begat that in these lands.
Oh, this is gonna take a lot of my time.
and you know, Tolkien is already that kind of writer. You know.
I think that I want it to be really dope, and like it's weird that like it was that good and it was that penetrating of pop culture, because usually when something is that big in pop culture, like a Star Wars, it doesn't win awards. But the first Lord of the Rings movie won like 4 or 5 Oscars.
Picture.
Yeah,
and it's the
Ian
first
McKellen
time
was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It won Best Cinematography.
Return of the
King won every award that it was nominated for, with the exception, and I still think it's kind of bullshit, of Best Actor, because there's a lot of great performances in that movie.
Was it McKellen with Best Actor?
I can't remember.
Was it,
no one in the movie was nominated.
Oh,
and I feel like you could have made solid arguments for Ian McKellen and Elijah Wood.
Viggo Mortensen could have made solid arguments for Viggo.
Yeah,
too.
but he's not like doing like a lot of great acting. It's just like him looking tough and rousing.
He gets pretty vulnerable at times.
Sean Astin
would
have been good.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it feels, but like never has something won Oscars.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah,
a lot of people Gollum an Oscar.
A lot of people still say like 2002, Two Towers, he should have been nominated.
It's such a great performance.
Like, but is he doing it or is the artist doing it? The VFX artists can change anything, whether or not you have a mocap suit on. They can make your eyebrows go up. If
oh my gosh!
want.
If you were going to give an award to Christian Bale for putting on a big prosthetic suit to play Dick Cheney, you'd be like, well, is it him or is it the costume acting? It's like he put the voice on.
Who cares?
He did everything else.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter. Like it's like
give Andy Serkis credit. He's great. I'm glad he gets to do a lot more roles outside of makeup now, because he's a really strong actor with a good look.
But he also made that industry. Mocap wasn't like now. All sorts of great actors have great mocap performances. Bill Nighy as Davy Jones, the most scene-chewing Pirates of the Caribbean villain. Even if you don't like those movies, he's great.
He's like, I'm going all in. I can't remember his name.
Planet of the Apes movies.
The guy. Doug Jones. Doug Jones made a whole career of doing that, because he's
but without
7 feet tall.
CGI, with just like put me in a suit and I'll do it. Like,
but he also is a great actor, because you know him as the Fawn and Pan's Labyrinth, and him doing a couple others. He's a good voice actor too.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, these guys aren't just, you know, and also people like Warwick David. You know, Warwick Davis coming out of Star Wars. He's a great actor. He just happens to also be a great actor who's good in makeup too.
Yeah. And like, you know, like ever since then, like being able to do a mocap performance is like, it's almost like a little stamp of honor. James Spader as Ultron. I don't like that movie that much. Has a great performance.
He's good in it.
What's his name? God, he's so good. He never gets any love. It's gonna drive me say I have to remember. It's the dude. He's in the he's in the Planet of the Apes movies. He plays Koba. It's his name. It's gonna drive me insane. I'm gonna remember it. I have to look it up. I'm gonna edit this out.
You have to throw me some other titles, and I'll be like, that's who it is.
Koba.
Planet of the Apes wiki, as portrayed by.
What is his name? This is gonna drive me insane.
You have to check the IMDb. There literally is. I could see Planet of the Apes wiki.
Yeah. Toby Kebbell. That's his name.
Yeah.
Toby Kebbell. Great actor. He did Kong in the last King Kong Skull Island movie. Pretty great. And he's also, he plays a helicopter pilot in it as well. And he's Koba in the Planet of the Apes movie. So 2 monkeys to Andy Serkis is 1 monkey. Well, I guess Andy Serkis is Caesar. So that's 3 other never mind.
Who's got the most monkeys?
And he's also plays, what's his name again? The dude he's in Warcraft as the lead orc character. And even in Warcraft is like, it's a subpar movie. He's so good in that, and it sucks that nobody gives him. He plays as Duratan, is the big orc, and it's such a great performance. Like his grumbly voice. Like if you see pictures of him doing it, he has dots all over his face and fake big teeth.
Yeah,
as
people forget there's a lot of acting you have to do in that part.
Yeah, he was in the disastrous Fantastic Four movie as Doctor Doom.
That's right.
I still think he's pretty good. Like again, and like he's like the movie's terrible. There's a whole story behind why that movie's bad.
It's a great story too. How that movie fell apart.
Yeah,
oh
Josh Trank and dogs, hotel rooms, and reshoots.
Where's the documentary documentary on that.
Yeah, I would love to see his movie because he went on Twitter and was like, I would have gotten rave reviews for my movie,
but here's
now it's
everything
gone.
that went wrong, and it just like
it also guaranteed he may never get like a big budget picture again because he kind of burnt his bridges there.
And then he also sided with like he's working with Trank first did
Chronicle
with the unspeakable Max Landis.
I despise Max Landis.
I used to be a fan. Now I don't care anymore.
I hate him. I don't like him very much.
He's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Primo. But poor Josh Trank.
I liked Bright, but I'm gonna just say that it's because of Will Smith and David Ayer, not Max Landis. Did you ever see that?
Nope.
On Netflix?
No,
it's not bad.
Didn't get around to seeing it.
Yeah, I know you don't want to support it because it's got his name on it.
No,
I hate him too.
No, I think it's just a matter of I think a lot of critical reviews I saw did not enthrall me to go see it.
I was the same way, and then I saw it and I was like, it's pretty cool. I'd watch a sequel to this. It's a cool little like
people
Lord
said
of the
it's
Rings.
like very kind of like, and I don't know this world, but very much like the Shadowrun RPGs.
I don't know.
That went to dead silence. So clearly,
I don't know what that is.
Or
it's Lord of the Rings meets Training Day.
Yeah. Well, it also reminds me of Alien Nation, which was a film, or TV show or something back where it was basically like a cop and an alien are buddies on the beat.
Yeah.
And actually, Jeff Nichols from our home state of Arkansas is going to be directing the film of it, a remake of it, but they're taking it out of the city.
Who did Midnight Special?
Midnight Special did Take Shelter, which is one of my top 10 of the last 10 years.
I haven't seen that one. I saw Midnight Special and it was pretty good.
Actually, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a weird ending. You may like it, you may not.
If it's a Jeff Nichols, Michael Shannon joint, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I love
anyway,
it.
I feel like we've talked enough about this. Let's talk about. I want Lord of the Rings stuff to be great. I was just saying it's weird that it's both a amazing pop culture behemoth and a critical prestige.
Yeah. In a similar way, I don't think anything's been like it since before Game of Thrones, because high fantasy, dragons, swords, sandals
was bullshit.
Never was popular aside from like Disney Merlin era.
And it always looked dumb, and it was treated with childishness, like a sense of childishness, and like
look
jokes
at something like Excalibur, 13th Warrior, something like
Excalibur
that.
is the closest that you get to it, and that's
that John Borman thing. Yeah,
that's a great movie too.
But it's like it didn't. Nothing. There wasn't something like even the animated Ralph Bakshi were cult classics, but they
this
were
was
not.
like it was the first time I remember being disappointed that the Oscars were like just for like snooty Oscar bait films, and if you make something big and undeniable, it was such a huge deal that to not give it Best Picture was like, go fuck yourself. This is the best movie.
I think that's also the argument people are making right now because of like. So we had the Emmys, and despite the fact that I think universally we agree that the final season of Game of Thrones was lackluster, and that's a very soft word for it. But it does not surprise me they gave it best drama
Why did she
show.
turn evil?
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. But I understand why they gave it, because it's like this is the end of one of the biggest pop cultural crossover phenomenon.
Why did you just say yes to 6 episodes?
Yeah,
give yourself more time.
Well, that's a whole episode. That's a whole episode there. But I get it at the same time, and I get it same way. It's like Return of the King. This is the end of what clearly was a crossover
Return of the King
thing.
The theatrical version is 3 hours and 21 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's unheard of. And I always watch the extended version, which is like 4 hours.
That's Lawrence of Arabia levels.
Yes. And
but there are orcs.
And he said one of his things was doing it was like, if he's going to do like these movies, he wants director's cuts, which means they have to shell out more money for the VFX and more money for ADR and more music and stuff. And those are like it's a level of confidence in a director that makes you look at something like,
I don't know how he made those movies, man.
Yeah,
it's going
with a great sense of casting.
Yeah,
who would have thought of like Viggo Mortensen? Make him Aragorn, the guy from A Perfect Murder, or like this
guy who is also at that time a gruff character actor, and they're just like, no, he's our guy.
Yeah,
And he
or like
was
the
perfect.
kid from Flipper, make him Frodo. Like
The kid from the faculty.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dork from the faculty will be our Frodo. And now it's like,
find a
Sean Astin.
yeah, find a no
Rudy.
Yeah, find a like
Give him a British accent, and it worked.
Yeah. And he said he had 4 days to learn a good British accent, basically, whatever.
Find
an unnamed Orlando Bloom and make him a heartthrob for forever.
Make him hot elf for life.
Yeah. You know, and like
get John Rhys Davies as
Gimli.
And Gimli.
There's not a single person who's miscast.
No, everything.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything. You hear about all the possibilities, like Sean Connery was going to be.
That might work.
Was
but
going
not
to be
as well as Ian McKellen.
Saruman, I think.
No, he was going to be Gandalf.
He was going to.
He didn't understand it. He didn't.
Yeah, he was like, I don't
yeah.
understand this. So he went and did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, God.
I'll do an episode on that. But
I just wanted that
Christopher Lee as Saruman.
Yeah,
iconic as all get out.
And like they say that there's not going to be a lot of crossover between these and the movies. It'll kind of be like it'll be like a thing like they're in this. It could be they're in the same world, but don't worry about it too much. Mm-hmm. If you want to think they are, then they are, because there's not going to be like the only character that would be alive to cross over would be like Gandalf and Saruman.
Yeah,
when they probably won't.
They're Aurors or Malar. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like I would almost appreciate if it kept its distance from the New Line property and saying, look, Tolkien's world is huge and anyone can adapt it and just be part of it while not having to be part of the film canon. Yeah. And it's like, that's fine. That's great.
We've waxed nostalgically about this long enough. Spider-Man is back at Marvel.
Back in.
Cool.
Couldn't get out of that web.
I mean, I made my stance clear last time. I think if Sony wants to keep Spider-Man to themselves, they have every right to do so, and I don't think they would do a bad job.
Do you know the details of how that whole thing? Because I have not been following it, and I just saw it today.
I want to say it was probably a power play to like get negotiating power so that they could get like a certain better deal for giving Spider-Man back to Marvel for a certain amount of money.
Like we have to.
So like I want to say like everyone else, I myself was very thrilled that Spider-Man went to Marvel so he could play around with all the other toys in the toy box.
Hey, buddy.
Come here, sweet boy. You need to behave for your mom.
Right. High five, buddy. Thank you, buddy.
I love you, Jude Clark. Bye-bye.
Good kid. Round of applause.
Anyway. I myself was as thrilled as anybody else. I was like, "Oh, Spider-Man's going to be with Marvel, and he's going to be away from Sony, who's
he's going to get to run,
botched like two franchises with him."
Like you said, like a toy, he's going to get to play with all the Avengers.
Yes, and just like I want to see like that big Justice League movie where there's 50 members on the Justice League. I want to see the Avengers movie where it's them and the X-Men and everyone else. But if I have to wait 10 years to get that, like I don't care. But like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's the end of the world. Like people, you would have thought like someone said like your mother is fat, and like Marvel was like your mother is fat or whatever. You would have thought it was something like that. I don't really care to talk about this too much. It's cool that he's going to stay there. I haven't seen Far From Home yet, but I hear it's quite good.
Me neither. But I also on that, I don't have very much to say on it. My stakes in Marvel are quite low. Yeah. I think of the three when we were talking about it, of the big franchises that I am more emotionally connected to, it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
So come a couple of months from now, when Rise of Skywalker comes around, then I'm gonna be running my mouth. But right now, whatever they want to do, aside from my favorite Spider-Man property right now, which is
Into the Spider-Verse.
which is Spider-Verse,
pretty good,
one of the best things I've ever seen in animation, at least.
Yeah.
And also coming out of the MCU, I think the arc of Tony Stark and Peter Parker is
great.
One of this really heartfelt, really nice things that came out of that. Yeah. And now that that's kind of wrapped up, like a spider web,
he's dead.
I don't know. I don't really know or have too much of a concern where the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is going to be, either in Sony or Marvel. Obviously, I thought that
as Marvel gets more power, they're going to get more of these characters back, because as these studios need the money, they'll sell them back. Like Universal hasn't made a Hulk movie in forever. Yeah. So like they're going to sell the rights back eventually, and we'll be able to have a Hulk movie. If you want to watch Planet Hulk, maybe we'll get it.
Maybe we'll
you kind of got it with Thor Ragnarok.
Kind of got it with Ragnarok,
which I don't like. It's not a good movie. I'm sorry. I don't like it.
I enjoyed it.
I like Taika Waititi.
I like that Taika Waititi.
But I just don't
good
like
sense of humor.
I don't want I'm tired of Thor being funny. Why can't he just be badass like the comic books? Why can't he just be the god of thunder?
Is that not?
It's called Ragnarok. The end of all things in Norse mythology, and it's like a funny buddy comedy.
Is that a Hemsworth problem? Is that just his performance with it is just so charming that it comes off humorous?
I think they felt that like he's at his best when he's funny, and
where he's a fish out of water sort of character.
I don't know that I disagree. I think his best moments are when he's very serious. Remember that first Thor movie when Loki comes, like the glass door shuts, and then Loki appears in front of him, and he's like, "Father is dead," and but you can't come back. And he does some real acting.
Yeah.
He cries. And he says, "Can I please come home?" And he goes, "No, you can't." And he goes, "No, it's my fault. I'm sorry." That guy is like, everyone sleeps on him, but he's got it in him. And there's my favorite lines of dialogue from Infinity War, where he goes, and he goes, "I'm 1,500 years old. I've killed twice that many enemies, and every one of them would have rather have killed me, but they didn't. And Thanos is just the latest in a long line of bastards, and he'll be the latest to feel my vengeance because fate wills it so." And I was like, that's a great line, and that's what I want.
And good delivery.
And instead we get like, thank you very much. I dabble.
Both you and Mr. Him.
No, just me. But like, I want a big Thor movie. I'm glad he's not like dead. No, spoiler alert.
Right.
I'm glad he's still going to be around, and maybe we'll get some cool stuff with him. I wanted
with the Guardians.
I wanted Ragnarok to be like a big deal for him, and it feels like just this little stepping stone.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think it's
Kate
because
Blanchett fell so flat for me. She does
pretty cool.
She does the sexy walk with her hands out, but she just throws knives and like.
Yeah, they could have been.
Odin's death happens in like 4 seconds, and I didn't feel it.
And then
they
Carl Urban's sort of like this sort
why
of.
is he there?
Carl Urban
He's
reminding
funny,
me of Cypher from The Matrix the whole time. I'm like, oh, he's a mischievous, bald-headed guy.
Yeah, and I felt like the movie had very little heart. It was more concerned with just making a lot of funny jokes, but like I didn't feel any character arcs. Like nobody felt very different by the end of it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I did enjoy it a lot, but as somebody who's
clear,
like,
I thought it was every part you laughed at, I laughed at too. But I think
every part I thought was like slick and cool. It's like, you know, the entire thing of just that planet and the combat thing and all that, and towards the end as well. I'm like, this is pretty neat, but I do think all the emotion of seriousness had been sapped from all those movies, so it could be built up into Infinity War's Endgame.
Sure, and I feel like that's a better the best. Like that's why I said the best performances in that movie. Like one of them is Thor in Infinity War because he's great in it, and I feel like people think he just does funny action movies.
No, you see the emotional toll that whole scenario plays out on him, and I believe it.
Yeah,
he's a good actor, Hemsworth.
Even in like Endgame, it's like that's why I was very kind of disappointed with like Fat Thor. I was just like,
dude, Thor.
Yeah, I was just like, can't he just be like? I would have like. I don't know. Just left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, Marvel will reign supreme with all their characters one day. We've not for them. Let's talk about horror movies, baby, and
we're counting down to Halloween.
Our factor of the. Oh yeah, we are, aren't we?
We're fall is upon us. Next week is October.
Our feature tonight. It Chapter 2.
That wild soundtrack thing that's just like.
So, we both saw It Chapter 2. Let's start first. What did you think of the first one?
It Chapter 1.
Yeah. By Andy Muschietti.
Originally was going to be by Cary Joji Fukunaga from True Detective. One of my favorite things ever.
Of No Nation.
And he's also
if you don't know
got the next Bond movie.
Oh, does he really?
He is the first American to direct after Billy. Danny Boyle dropped the new Bond film. Cary Joji Fukunaga is going to be directing it.
That's a bad move, Danny.
Yeah, he dropped it.
Make a Bond movie, Danny Boyle.
It doesn't seem good, but I
like Danny Boyle.
Fukunaga has a very good point of view.
By the way, did you see Yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I bet it's.
I like that Danny Boyle. He gets around, doesn't he?
He's a journeyman filmmaker. Yeah. You never know what he's going to make. I grew up a big Trainspotting fan.
The reason I like, that's great. And Trainspotting 2 is surprisingly good as well.
T2.
Yeah.
I need to see it. I do need to see it. I will do anything to at least get back to seeing Robert Carlyle's Begbie. Because I'll watch anything of Robert Carlyle. Yeah. He's delightful.
He's in Aragon. He is
an Aragon. Speaking of horrible movies.
Durza.
And he's speaking of Bond,
he's good in that movie.
He's Renard in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah,
I'm a low-key Bond fan, so
I like them too. It's weird that Daniel Craig is still going to be Bond. You think he kind of doesn't give a shit anymore, but he's 2 more Bond movies at least.
2 more?
Yeah,
didn't know that.
He has a thing in his contract. He's not going to run anymore.
That's fair.
Like he won't physically run. Like, I'm too tired. It takes too much energy saying this ripped. Can I please just walk?
It's funny.
Like, you notice, you remember in not Skyfall, in Spectre, when he breaks out of the thing and he blows up the cars and they escape. You notice he doesn't run.
He ain't doing the Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt run. He's like,
Tom Cruise will jump off a building to make us love him.
Yeah, that's a young. He's like, that's a young man's game.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Daniel Craig is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the reason I liked Cary Joji Fukunaga, I heard he was going to do It, and I was like, I remember that episode 2 or 3 of True Detective where he does that long tracking shot where we follow Matthew McConaughey
through
out of the
Texas
hood
ghetto, and is one of the best shots in TV history.
It's so good.
And also, True Detective season 1, which if you give me enough, I'll talk to. It's one of my favorite things on television. It's
great.
my top 5 favorite seasons of
he
anything
directs
at all.
most of that.
He directs the whole series of the whole first season.
Oh yeah, the whole first season. Yeah,
and Nick Palazzo does the screenplay for all of it.
Pizzolatto, who is a UCA alumnus.
U of A.
U of A alumnus.
U of A. He's a Louisiana guy, but he's also an Archie boy.
Yeah, which is why season 3 is set
in Arkansas, because season 1 was supposed to have been set in Arkansas, but they changed it to Louisiana because it would have been cheaper, and he knew the area better.
Yeah, fair enough.
They couldn't get the rights. Anyway, long story short, why Fukunaga would have been great is there are moments in True Detective season 1 that are outright horror, and they're very scary.
I would say like that whole last episode is just unnerving.
It's a terrifying, and everything leading up to it, the suggestions, the whole spaghetti man thing is just absolutely unnerving. And there's this great shot in around the 4th episode or so where it's just a slow-mo shot of a guy in his underwear and a gas mask with a machine gun. No, he's got something. He's
a machete or something.
A machete,
he walks out of his crack
walking,
lab and it just freezes.
And he just freezes and it stands there. And for some reason, it's like, it gives me chills just thinking about it. And it's just like, it's just a guy. Yeah. So I was like, all right, this guy.
Even when they attack the house the next episode, they weave their way through the, like
they're lying, and they're lying about the whole thing to the police.
Yeah, I mean that's not what. Yeah,
but
they are.
Still,
but
the tension is so.
Yeah, when they're going towards the house and stuff, and like there's like, oh, there's landmines here. This is like this might be the real deal. There's a part where Woody Harrelson goes into the thing while Matthew McConaughey has them both on their knees, and Woody Harrelson just sees something that's so grotesque. He comes out and shoots him.
And that's so much of it is what you don't see.
Yeah,
and it's like so Fukunaga.
He does that clearly twice. He does that twice actually.
Yeah, because it's just the videotape of the guy
and then you just hear Woody Harrelson.
No!
Yeah, it's awful.
But
that guy's good.
But he didn't direct it. I think he produced.
No, they use bits of his screenplay, so he still gets a screenplay credit, and he might have had a production credit. But production implies that he's involved in that production,
and he was not.
So he might have an executive.
He worked on Maniac instead with Elijah Wood. But.
Yeah, it's weird that he didn't come back for season 2 of True Detective or whatever.
He didn't come back over any of it,
which a lot of people don't like, but I think is okay.
I have not watched the whole thing. I watched all of season 3, and I think it's pretty good for what it is.
Yeah.
And that's all. Half of that was going to be the awesome. Whose name I can't think of.
Mahershala Ali?
No. The director did Green Room, did Blue Ruin.
I can't remember.
Jeremy Saulnier.
Yeah.
Jeremy Saulnier did a few episodes of that, but he didn't do the whole thing, which is a shame. Anyway, back to
It Chapter
why
1.
It Chapter 1.
Do you like it? Let's start there.
Yes, I did like it. I liked it. I saw it in theaters when it came out with a big crowd. I saw it in New York, and I saw it with a big crowd and everything. And it was to keep it simple, it was a very strong young cast, all very likable, very good dialogue, great creature designs. It felt worth its time. And I've not read the book. I should bring it up. I've not read Stephen King's 1986. Yeah, it doesn't appeal to me. He's a good short story writer. His novels kind of are something I don't know if I'm ready to tackle on. But I love Stephen King as a short story writer.
Especially my friend who's like, dude, you have to read The Dark Tower. Like, there's like 90 books in that series. I can't get started.
That is an epic on epic levels.
Can't do it.
But it is. I will say it's kind of clunky. But it is still very watchable and very enjoyable. I think a lot of it has to do with the directing. Machete did a great job with the tone. Skarsgård as Pennywise,
pretty good.
I mean, I'd love to talk about that afterward. We come this up because
when we get into like some spoilers, we can talk about it.
And we
not even spoilers.
Not even that, because we can also talk about because this character became iconic due to Tim Curry's performance in the 1990s. And there's something about the way Skarsgård Peter Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård.
Bill
Peter
Skarsgård.
is
Peter's
his older brother.
Yeah, his older brother.
The less talented one. Yeah, I said it. He's handsome, but what does he offer the world? Nothing.
And speaking of handsome, Billy Skarsgård and all that makeup does Pennywise in such a fantastic way. In that, when Tim Curry did it, it's very clear that he's like, "Come on, kid!" Da, 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 da. It's like he's openly malicious.
Yeah,
but he's like aware of his maliciousness to a cruel degree.
It's almost like he's doing it in a play.
Well,
whereas Bill Skarsgård feels like he's doing it in a movie.
Well, he also feels like he's doing it as a creature, not like something that's trying to be human but isn't. And that's a really interesting thing, because that's what it is.
I agree. I also think that he does a better job at targeting. This is gonna sound really bad. Targeting children. He does.
He is a superior predator. That's true in this film.
He's like, it's he
thinks
makes
more like
he makes the kids like him.
Yeah, and I think
somehow, because kids are stupid in this universe. But
and the way he plays this character is that it's like a creature that believes its own lies, to where its maliciousness is accidental. I know it's really weird to say, but it's such a very specific performance. I love that specific versus Curry's, which is a lot of fun.
It's just manic.
But he's just basically playing like he'd be like the Joker if the Joker ate people. He's like, "Come here, kid. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna tear you." He's like, I purposefully know I am acting like a bad human to you.
Yeah.
While Skarsgård is just like, I'm just this kind of creature, and then it's like he's gonna eat you.
There's maliciousness to both of them, but like Tim, I think that the miniseries is fine for what it is. It's a lot of Tim Curry being great, and everything else.
And
is okay.
the scenes with the kids are really good too.
Yeah,
this is one we're talking about. Chapter 2, the superior film in terms of when it goes to the adults is going to be this one.
Yes.
It's going to be this film.
And Will Poulter was supposed to be Pennywise, and he had apparently a great audition for it, and it was really good.
Would love to see that.
I would really love to see that and just see how different it could have been, because Bill Skarsgård, pretty great.
Yeah,
I can't think of anything
iconic at this point, because
hasn't done a lot of big movies.
Because I don't know Bill Skarsgård's oeuvre, and then he comes out with this role.
He was on Hemlock Grove,
which I hear is good.
Yeah, but like not a lot of this is like the biggest thing he's done so far,
and it's a huge role.
Yeah,
I mean it's now like Halloween costumes for the next 10 years. What's going to be interesting about this movie, about these two films together, is this is like next to James Wan's Conjuring verse. Yeah, this is the first time there's been like a modern horror franchise, a modern horror epic. Like,
the last movie was like 3 hours long.
Yeah, it treated itself more like a urban adventure than a out and out horror film.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way. And I always say with horror movies, I'm very rarely scared of anything in horror movies anymore. So I don't go in going like, is it scary? I don't judge it by how scary it is. I just judge it by like any other
story
movie.
Good?
Is the story good? Do I like the performances? Is the cinematography, the music? There's a lot of what I love about the first one, and it's still as present in the second one, is I love how he balances like genuinely scary, and I put scary in quotes because I'm like, oh, is he gonna eat that kid? Yeah, he is. So like, I don't. It can be scary and still predictable, I guess. But my point is,
jump scares are predictable because like the sound will drop and everything, but it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, the balance. The way he balances like scary moments and dark moments with like moments of real like human. I'm gonna just say like emotion and like love, for lack of a better word. Particularly like at the end of the first one when the kids are. Spoiler alert for the first one.
For the first chapter 1. Figured you wouldn't be talking about chapter 2.
Yeah, when they're all like standing around. Well, the same moments happen in the second one.
It is very mirrored.
When they're standing out and like when they're jumping into the pool and the score is very like serene and emotional. It's like, these are the best times of these kids' life. So even though things are bad, there's also like these great bonds that they'll remember forever.
What makes this important is they as their
relationship.
People, that's what saves them from this is their friendship. Right. It is, as cheesy as it sounds, that is the core of this story, is the power of the confidence of friendship and the power of youth.
Yeah, it's a great testament to like how music shapes a movie.
Yeah,
because a lot of the music is
shapes tone entirely.
For a lot of movies, a lot of the music is done after the fact.
Right.
So like it's sort of like very few movies are done with the music being done while the movie happens. Like Christopher Nolan gave Hans Zimmer a little, like 2 pages of dialogue and a letter from Inception and said, "What do you?" And you wouldn't know that it's about dreams and stuff, like,
Right.
or it's like
And he's
he
like,
just
"Do this,"
it's
and
just like father and son stuff. And Hans Zimmer wrote the piece of music kind of about a relationship between a father and his children, which was Leo DiCaprio trying to get back to his kids.
Right.
And that's how they made the piece Time from
Oh my
Inception.
gosh.
So like it's very rarely do people do that. Benjamin Wallfish is the name of the composer. He did the music for this one, It Chapter 2, Blade Runner 2049, and Shazam.
Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack.
Yeah.
Was
All 4 of those movies, Blade Runner, Shazam, they're all different, and they all have great.
And quite not super synthy. I mean, 29, yes, but 2049 rather, but. This one had appropriately because it's the major change. One of the major changes is they upped the time
to the 1980s. So
yes,
that when
originally
they become
it's
adults,
set
they will be 2016.
in the mid late 60s, and then all the characters are adults in the 80s because the book came out in 86. And so, and I think this got a little clumsy with the script because this is going to come into my criticism about chapter 2, but. That synthy, I think, like one of the really good scenes talking about the music and everything is when they go to Beverly's apartment in chapter 1 because the blood is everywhere. Yeah. Her dad can't see it. None of the adults can see anything. Yeah. And that, I think it's The Cure. They play a song for The Cure as they're doing it. It just feels really like nostalgic and like warm-hearted. And I'm like, this really works. This really works. You care about these people. You care about these kids. And it happens that all of them are good actors too.
And I especially it makes me love those moments because it makes me like root for those kids when they have the little moment where they're all holding each other's hands and they cut the blood pact or whatever to come back.
It's like we have to do this.
The emotional music makes me like really. I already like the relationship with the characters, but like I really felt like the filmmaking. Filmmaking is like it's visual aspects, like it's camera work and cinematography with great acting, with
pace.
Great lighting, with music, all that stuff coming together to make like a lasting piece of of film for you or whatever. And like I felt like there's a bunch of moments in that first movie where they do that, and they're the same thing here. In the second one, so let's go in. Let's get into because we both like the first one. Let's get into.
Yeah, I do like the first one. So obviously that transition is that we are leaving that core cast. Yeah. Because that was one of the things that I thought because one of the things I've observed is a lot of young readers. Because I work at a bookstore, are reading it now. They want to read it. And I'm like, what is this? Well, what happened was the one thing I noticed about this film and why it's so popular is I'm like, oh, this is very clearly following up on the Stranger Things thing. Sure. This is a group of young people who are on their own. Parents don't believe them, up against a supernatural entity. It's got a Stranger Thing in it. Finn Wolfhard plays young Richie in that. So it's got a little Stranger Thing in it. Yeah. And then we are leaving that to go into this adult cast, and I think that's what shocked me the most is when the news came out. It was like they're going for A-listers here. You've got James McAvoy. You've got
the casting news came out like real quick.
It's like they already had them like we're gonna do it, and the big ones are James McAvoy.
When the first one came out,
Jessica Chastain.
When the first movie came out, it made like $600 million off of like a $40 million budget. Yeah, they made mad money. So like
especially for an R-rated film, they made big bucks.
This one's doing good too. So it's like New Line Cinema had like a sleeper hit. They made between those 2 movies alone, they made like $1 billion+, and they made mad money. So they're gonna give Andy Muschietti, who is also now going to be doing the Flash movie for DC.
Is that right?
Yeah,
good call.
So everyone involved just got way better, and I'm surprised at how much I didn't get starstruck by this old cast.
Boy howdy, yeah.
Yeah, when I saw like
some people really didn't have much to do.
Yeah, I mean that might be true, but I was never like, oh, that feels out of place. This person, really? Like I never felt that.
The casting was great. The casting was fine. It's just.
So what were your? One thing we always do for new movies, and we're talking about the episode. What were your expectations going in? What did you want to happen?
Well, I knew.
Or what did you want to feel?
I knew going in because comparing it to the original film, at least, and also with the book, is that the way it's broken up is we are in the current adult timeline, I guess, the current time, and then everything is flashbacks. So they completely got rid of that by making it 2 timelines. So there are flashbacks in chapter 2, but I was like, all right, so this is going to be focused primarily on this strong cast, which has got a couple of A-listers, at least general A-listers, and a few other character actors.
Sure.
And what I was hoping for was kind of, I was like, it's going to be a long film. It's going to be 3 hours.
Yeah. Keep going.
Is that I wanted to see those actors really get a chance, like really get to be in it, because these are not typically like horror actors. Like James McAvoy, I guess, was in Split
and
but also in
Glass.
Split, he was the horror. He's not reacting to it. He's not the victim
also,
of it.
very, very good in Split. Split's a great performance by that.
It is a good performance. I agree. Jessica Chastain, who's one of my favorite actresses. Love seeing her in things. I was very interested to see how she'd play this character, because I think they were also like, is it going to be her? Is it going to be Amy Adams? Because they were like,
both would be great choices.
Who's the redheaded actress who's going to take this role? And it went to Chastain.
One of the two of them.
And I was like, hey, I love Jessica Chastain, and I was very excited to see her. Definitely was excited about Bill Hader. Bill Hader, I think, is one of the most exciting actors right now.
Yeah.
Funny, intense. If you haven't watched Barry's awesome.
I've seen the first season.
It's good.
It's great.
It's good. He gets
Henry
to show.
Winkler's great in it.
Henry Winkler's a dynamite. As someone who has done acting school before, that show is real.
Yeah.
Except for the hitman part, but that show is real.
Love the part where he tells him his story about like him is like, oh, I've been like this hitman and this violence, and he's like, it's a really great like early Pacino thing. The hitman story is garbage, but the rest of it's
he's like where's that from? He's like, oh no, the hitman thing's total bullshit, but it really works.
But everything else, like, he's so full of shit.
And then the truth about it is, you pay up front. You pay up front, that's like, yep, that's right. No, down payment. Anyway, the acting was what I was looking forward to. I was looking for the same. When the first trailers came out and it shows the scene of Jessica Chastain in the room with the old lady and all that, and I was like,
creep factor.
I was like, this is good. This looks really intense. I was like, I was hoping that consistency would stay throughout, because I knew it was also going to go for broke and be this big cosmic horror duke out.
Yeah, you get some of that.
You do get some of that.
I'm glad you don't get. I can't tell if I'm upset or not upset that we don't get that. Maybe I don't know.
Well, I've got
part of me wants to be like, go Cthulhu craziness. I want all of it. Like, and the other part of me goes, no, keep it level headed.
There's parts of me that when we talk about the criticism of it, that I'm like, the strict adherence to the book and also the lack of adherence to certain parts of the book is its biggest anchor, and I mean its biggest sinking point. Okay. And I think now, well, you go. I'll hold that. I'll hold that thought for now.
My expectations were a lot of the same things. I wanted it to be as good, and I wanted to really. The big thing for me was, like I said, I don't care if it scares me anymore. I just don't care. So I just want it to be like, I want to feel the relationships between the characters, and I want it to be as strong as the first one. I want to feel a sense of like, I want to know how these people all come back together, what it does to their lives, and I just want like a good horror movie, whether or not it scares me or not. I just kind of don't give a shit.
Right.
Like when I go into like a horror movie, like it takes a lot to scare me anymore. And I don't even say that like to brag. I just say like,
no, I think that's fair.
I go into like my favorite horror movies. Like I like stuff that's really off the beaten path. And a lot of people, my friends, like, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm like, I tolerate Nightmare on Elm Street. like some of them are okay, but like I like movies like The Witch and Hereditary.
Yes,
and,
I was talking about Ari Aster before. You know, like you're going in because
I like stuff that's
atmosphere is
cerebral.
oppressive.
There's these two brothers who make movies. I can't remember. I don't know if they're brothers, but there's this team of filmmakers, and they make. They did a movie called The Endless on Netflix. And it's not quite a horror movie as much as it's like there's horror aspects.
Sounds real familiar, but I don't know.
These two kids who were involved in a UFO cult escape, and then years later they decide they're going to go back and see what was going on. It's very much like it feels like these really human relationships, and then they add like this otherworldly, like Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft stuff, and they make you roll with it.
I dig. Going back to.
So I wanted to see like, because I remember enough about I haven't read the books, but I know enough about it to know like, isn't like its enemy is like a giant turtle who controls the universe,
and they discover it through indigenous American smoke tents and all this. And
I want to know how that
weird
happens.
appropriation.
And like, here's the thing: H.P. Lovecraft is a crazy person. He wrote some amazing stories.
Wait, H.P. Lovecraft or Stephen King?
H.P. Lovecraft. I'm bringing this up for a reason. It's like
he's a nightmare human.
So like, he's an evil racist, but
he created some very interesting
genre of horror,
cosmic horror.
Yeah, and like the
fear of the
unknown stuff.
Yeah, fear of the unknown.
I wanted some of that because Stephen King dabbles in some of that, and I wanted and I wanted just to get a little bit of that, and I feel like my expectations were met for the most part. So let's talk about the good.
The good. Okay.
We'll start with casting and performances. I'll go in order if I think who's the best between who's the least best. And
I think it's fair. I don't know all these actors.
Yeah, that's why I brought the behind me. So I think of the best ones, Bill Skarsgård is still up there. I don't know if he's the top for me, but he's
still nailing it.
He's good. The best part even is like there's a part where we see him as like a human.
Yeah.
Once, and that was really unnerving,
interesting, very
creepy. If the Losers Club in the order of like how good I think they are, I'll go Bill Hader.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Jessica Chastain. Then I'll go. Hold on, what's his name? Jay Ryan, who plays older Ben, handsome man. He becomes handsome. And then it goes James McAvoy, not Richie's character, Jack Dylan Grazer's character. Hold on. What's his name? The kid who plays young Eddie. Or old
James
Eddie now?
James Mazzioni.
Yeah,
I think.
and then,
check that name real quick. I don't want to butcher it.
James Ransone.
Ransone.
And then, young Stanley, who I put him at the bottom. It's kind of unfair because we'll get to the spoilers later. Right. Doesn't have as much screen time as the rest of them.
They do make something work.
He does have. They have something with him that adds to it. I think that's the order of which how good they are, and I think they're all pretty good.
And we're also forgetting the guy who plays Mike as well.
Who's the guy who plays Mike? Oh yeah, that's right.
Because he's a little bit more up there for me. Because I think you're going to find
Isaiah Mustafa. He's somewhere in the middle. He might be around James McAvoy for me.
I think you'll find mine's going to be pretty kind of flip floppy.
Oh yeah, give me yours.
So Skarsgård, I'm just going to leave out because I mean he's just the iconic.
He's great, but I was going for like the main Losers Club. So
for the Losers Club, I'm going with Hader first. I mean,
baby.
People were right. He tackles this so brilliantly.
The right amount of funny and the right amount of heart.
James Ransone as Eddie, I think, is also really, really, really good, and their chemistry in particular it's so standout.
It is.
McAvoy has a few little weird moments, but his intensity is great, and he's clearly enjoying this role.
His intensity is. I don't disagree with any of that. I just think that his ultimate arc is just less interesting.
Yes, but
so that's why I put him lower.
Yeah, he's that character, and we'll get to that. Again, strict adherence to the plot of the book is kind of a little bit of a downfall of how good this movie could have been. Anyway, Mr. Mustafa, who plays
handsome Ben,
plays Mike.
Mike. God, I got there's too many people in this movie.
Plays Mike. Does a really good job in it too. I will go ahead and say the Mr. Ryan, who plays Ben, next up.
Handsome man.
I'm putting Jessica Chastain fairly low.
The reason I put Chastain and him higher is because they had great chemistry as the movie went on, and it was that nice will they won't they, and I didn't roll my eyes at any of it. I was like, she should love him. He's a good person, and I was like, so their arcs wrap up very nicely for me. So yes. I put a lot of effort into
which is why, considering the film going, I put so much for Hader and Ransone, because their arc in particular and the moments they have together are high points.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that Ransone does less good acting than Bill Hader does. But their arcs are really good together. Right. That's the only reason I would say that. And again, I think it's an embarrassment of riches. I think they're all good. So I wouldn't take anything away from any of them.
I think my biggest thought is some people really seem like they don't have much to do. And I think that becomes the fate.
And I judge some of that, even though it's probably more the writing than it is the acting.
And I'll go ahead and just because I know these characters a little more, and I don't want to keep going back between the actors and characters. I'm just going to talk about the characters here now, so I'm just going to refer to them as that.
And let me just clear something up real quick, is because like, one of the reasons I say is like I one of the things that matters, especially like when I judge a film, especially like if it's a big kind of movie, whether it's a blockbuster, like a big budget kind of horror deal.
Which this is a blockbuster horror.
Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it?
Weird. Again, like post James Wan Conjuring franchise.
Big frame kind of storytelling, whether it's epics, whether it's like superheroes, regular run-of-the-mill blockbusters, or like blockbuster horrors. If it's sort of big scope storytelling, I care a lot about character arcs.
Yeah.
So I judge part of the performance on like how good is the character arc. Like there's been great performances. So I was like, but he doesn't. He's the same person by the end, unless that's the point where it's like Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood. He's the same guy by the end of the movie.
Well, then you're going back to what we were talking about with like a guy like John Wick or Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you don't want
I'm
to change.
here for watching them affect the story, not being affected by the story.
Most characters, I would say, aren't like that. They're kind of
especially not in a book, not in something that was based on a novel.
Right. And so I judge very much based off like character arcs. And I think if you ignore good character arcs in a movie, like you're kind of selling short the purpose of the movie. So like I sort of judge half by their acting and half by like where the characters end up.
Yeah.
And I felt some of them, the end is a little bittersweet for some of them.
Yep.
And a little like some things aren't tied up and some things are referenced in the movie that I don't know why that's in there.
I was actually
particularly with James McAvoy and Mike's character.
And
I was like,
and I was a little more like, I almost thought they were going to cut it shorter than they did, and I was like, all right, fine, we're getting I was actually happy to be like, all right, well, a little more resolution, because it could have easily dropped off right when it did, and we would just would have been left with that. I'm like, I need more of a denouement.
Yeah,
I need more falling action.
You get the Lord of the Rings ending.
Yeah, and
it's just like,
with this,
where is everyone?
You've got so many characters, and you got so many things happening that we need it a little bit.
Yeah,
and I like that it was that how it closes out.
You give me a good enough movie, I'll sit for 5 hours. I don't care. I genuinely like don't mind a slow burn, or even not a slow burn, just like a long movie.
Because this one really wasn't I would argue it's not a slow burn. Again, it is plotted by how the book works.
Yeah, and let's talk about. So speaking of plot, we talked about good. There's lots of good acting. I don't think there's anything that I would critique the acting for. Even like a lot of
Skarsgård's dynamite. He's hilarious and horrifying.
And when we get into spoilers, we'll go back to some of this and talk about like some of our favorite moments. But let's talk about plot. Let's talk about what happens. Like, can you like trace the story? What's happening?
So
what's happens in this movie?
Back in the 1980s, so I guess 1988, 89. I think it's supposed to be 89 or so, because it's in 2019. The Losers Club is able to defeat the clown Pennywise, the demonic creature. They were
kill the fucking clown.
They killed the fucking clown, and they put a thing through his head, and they said they bullied him into non-existence.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah, well, this comes around a lot. They bully him into non-existence. Cut to however long later, 23, 20. I think it's 23 years. Yeah, 23 years later. Or almost 29.
By the way, a horror movie trope: once every 23 years, he comes back. That's also in Jeepers Creepers. I don't know why I just thought of once every 23 years for 23 days. Yeah.
I kind of like that stuff because I'm a big fan of like rustic rural horror.
Yeah, me too.
Like what's going on in that house.
It's got to be done the right way. Like if it's too much like a Halloween or a Friday
Texas
the 13th.
Chainsaw.
Yeah, not that
Texas Chainsaw's a little more on the
not that I
level.
don't like some of those movies or even like remakes of those movies to a degree, but like Blood and Guts only get me so far.
I need atmosphere.
I need atmosphere. Like True Detective does a great job of creating like a feeling of like
dread.
Remember that opening scene where he's dragging this poor dead woman's body and he puts antlers on her head or whatever and like leaves her in this field. It feels like there's this gross sense of like, and Matthew McConaughey said it. It's like a perverse ritual for him.
Yeah.
He's displaying his own disgust. He's displaying his own disgust with himself in a way.
And then you get those great shots of this wide field, and us growing up as Southerners. At least I'm like, I know these areas.
Yeah.
This looks like home.
Yeah, you drive past Mayflower, you look at all like the endless fields and the giant wooded forest. Like, what's going on in there?
And the little huts outside of the lake, and it's like that still exists.
Yeah.
And it gets a little bit of that, especially with some of the set pieces like the old manor. Either way, we cut to the future, and now Mike Hanlon, who is and this is something interesting. everybody goes off and leaves the town.
Except Mike.
Except Mike. He stays and stays and works in the library. Everyone else leaves, and they don't see each other again for all that time. And while they're away, they become fairly or very successful in their own right, almost like a reverse of fortune. A little bit. It's discussed in the story a little more.
The further away you get from Derry, the better your life is, and
you forget the trauma that happened.
Yeah,
trauma is a
plot
big
point.
thing about this.
And I don't even know if it's it implies that it's more than trauma. Like there's something about Derry.
Well, it's the magic. It is magic,
yeah.
but it is also subtly that as well.
Yeah,
and
then they're all doing their life stuff,
and then the murders start happening again of children or random people. There's a really brutal hate crime that happens at the start, which is taken right from the book. But it is also really like, ooh,
is that from the book?
That's from the book. Oh. I almost cut directly, which is a lot more timely for the 1980s.
Yeah, weird.
But it's still timely for now. But it does feel a little more like intense and kind of.
It feels timely now because we're stuck in Derry, which is a world that's like frozen in
time, and also has. In that classic Stephen King sense, and you get this from things like Pet Sematary, where it's so beautifully written, the soil is sour, like the land is wrong. And that's another horror I like, is like bad land, like it's just cursed and fucked up. And I'm like, I love that stuff. So Derry's like that. It is stuck in a backwards place where the evil is overlooked. And so a thing like Pennywise can go have a buffet there, and he starts buffeting again. Children are going missing, and so Mike Hanlon is like, guys, we made a promise, we have to come back and stop it. And it draws them back into the town.
So that's the story. There are I think for as long a movie as this is, it does a pretty good job at keeping a nice sense of pace. I didn't ever feel myself like looking at my watch or getting bored with anything. The one thing I say is like there are elements of the plot that feel added for almost no reason, or not no reason, but they're added and then they're never resolved.
That's interesting.
So
I feel like there were things that were probably dropped from the book, but
that could be true.
There are whole character things that happen. They're just like, oh, okay, but I think that they looked at that novel and said, we can't put everything in. Like there are characters that show up later that are bigger in the book and that are bigger in the 1990 film, but they were like, we're not going to get too much into that. We've got too much to focus on now.
And for as long as this movie is, there are parts of it that I might even cut out. Not that I'd even.
Oh yeah.
So that brings us to negatives. Let's talk about like, what does the movie not do as good as you wanted it to, or left you feeling something that? Well,
it's more like what I suspected and was afraid of, which is because it is this important novel in modern horror, and one of Stephen King's biggest sellers. Strict adherence to this plot becomes kind of troublesome, and they do some subversive things in it, which we'll talk about in spoilers, that I was like, okay, that's a good way to get around that. But there's a point in it where, and everyone knows this, is just like in the first book, it mirrors everything. In the first film, each of the Losers Club, each of the kids has a particular traumatic, horrifying experience of Pennywise in his many guises, his many forms.
And that becomes a literal plot point.
And each one of them is like, you saw the clown, you saw the clown, you saw the clown. And that's what brings them together to be like, we're the only ones who could do something because we're still alive. There's a plot point where that happens, where it's like, we have to go and each deal with something on our own. And it feels like we now get Beverly's chapter, we get Ben's chapter as adults. And at that point, it almost feels a little bit like a video game where they have to be like, you have to go collect this. You have to go collect this. And that's from the book.
I felt there was a way they
better as chapter by chapter reading it than it does watching it through a film.
I felt there were things they could have done to make it more smooth. And
I agree.
Or even if they don't have to make it more smooth, there are things they could have done to make it more resonant.
Or they could have
gotten rid of it altogether, baby.
Or jumbled some things together. You didn't have to make everything so strict. I don't think anyone's going to kind of. Well, I don't know. Maybe some people will go up in arms about it, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be like.
So since we're
change things.
Yeah, since we're at bads, let's go ahead and get into spoilers because this is where we usually do it, because it's hard to talk bad without.
Because I can also talk about some goods. We'll
reverse it now. I didn't feel. What's his name? Hold on. I'm looking at the screen. Henry Bowers. I did not think was,
why is he back in the movie?
I didn't think he was necessary, and I think it's very.
I would even say it's not really a spoiler that he returns because he returns really early.
Yeah. We're in spoilers, so it's
he
fine.
very clearly, for one thing, the actor who plays him as a kid does a really good job of being this horrifying sociopath. And even like one of my other favorite parts is it's very clear that his friends are even like, dude, I think Henry's getting fucking crazy. Yeah. And I was like, that's really smart. I like that. That it's like he's not just a bully, he's a lunatic who's like.
I don't like the fact that he's a lunatic because of Pennywise, though. I like the fact that
he was a lunatic before. He's like clearly a psychopath
because he picks up the knife and Pennywise is like, stab your fucking dad. Or
well, it's like, but there's a little scene because I watched chapter 1 recently where when they have young Ben and they're carving in his belly and
he's an asshole. That's for sure.
And his friends are like, dude, chill out. He's like, don't make me do this. I gotta do this. It's like, oh, it's very clear he's got some kind of problem.
Yeah.
And Pennywise takes advantage of that.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Because then, like,
why is he back in this movie?
So in the original book, in that he sees the deadlights and Pennywise kills his friends. He doesn't kill his friends. He goes insane and he gets blamed for the child killings and goes to an asylum, like some Shawshanky kind of main asylum. In the first movie, he falls through a well and definitely dies. But no, he doesn't. He has to come back. He comes back. He is incarcerated and put into an asylum again. And he breaks out just like in the book and just like in the original film, except way less fun. And
wait, he does die in the first one?
No, it looks like he does. Like he should.
But how does he not die? Don't they like bash him over the head?
Yeah, they bash him over the head and then fall through I'm saying he should have not come back to life.
But how? Is that addressed in the movie?
No,
this is another plot
they don't.
point.
They just do it, again, strict adherence to the plot. They have to have him in it because it's in the book. And that's where it's like, no, you don't need Henry Bowers at all.
I feel like you could write him out of the movie and just like there's a part where he stabs Eddie.
He stabs Eddie
in the cheek or whatever.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's really cringy and harsh.
It's grisly and everything, but
not necessary.
Nothing happens in
the
plot
with it. And also, there's a weird plot point where like it doesn't make sense like how he what happens in the movie is he's in a insane asylum. He's looking out the window and the balloon is floating by his window, and he sees it. He gets real excited. He's like, "Oh, Pennywise is back!" And he goes crazy. Under his bed, we see the balloon. He tries to take the balloon out, and the balloon pops, and there's a zombie.
And it's the corpse of one of his buddies.
Right, and it hands him his switchblade, and he goes, "You need to get out of here." And then he gets out of there, and he kills the guard, and he gets into a car, and he escapes.
That's driven by the corpse.
Here's the thing. Is the corpse in his mind, or is the corpse driving the car?
Well, that becomes another thing.
And if the corpse is driving the car, can other people see the corpse?
Yeah.
Because we never see the corpse again.
Or if Pennywise is terrestrial, he cannot leave the city limits of Derry, which it's confirmed he cannot leave the city limits of Derry. He is not a creature that can go over to Augusta, Maine, or some other place like that and cause mayhem.
Who would ever go to Augusta?
He exists in this realm. Is that asylum in Derry, or is he just like, I took another sewer to get over there? It is a small plot hole, but it's enough to be like, again.
I think that's one of those things
drop the character.
I think that's a thing where you can like you can suspend your disbelief, like, oh, his influence can go many other places or whatever.
Right, and also Bowers is deranged and is just kind of like, oh,
yeah, but like he needs more reasons to escape.
But Pennywise, by canon is like I need you to follow up what we did to kill those kids that caused me problems. Because Pennywise, and this is something I actually do like, and I think going back to the performance of Skarsgård, does such a good job. Pennywise, I think a lot of people are like, why can't Pennywise just kill these people? He never does. He has all these opportunities. He's this vaguely omnipotent horror creature, this Lovecraftian entity.
Yeah.
But he doesn't kill these people. And I think it's because, and this is something Skarsgård does well, and this is what I got to give to the performance of the adult actors, Pennywise still tries to scare them like he does to children.
Right.
And I love it. And Eddie
wants to relish their deaths.
Right. But he also doesn't know how to scare them on an adult level. He only knows how to scare children.
Yeah. So
that's all he's good at.
So he appeals to their most childish horror, their most, not childish, but like their most adolescent phased horror,
which they respond very appropriately. And that's the part why I like James Ransoni in this as Eddie, because his response to it is more just like, oh, fuck. He's just aggravated with it. And it's
he
like,
doesn't like things that are, his fear is like, I don't like things that are gross.
yeah, he's a
Like,
hypochondriac and all that. And so like the
we're going to pause here. I'm
Let's
going
pull
to pee.
back.
I'm going to pee real quick.
Okay.
And I'll be right back.
Because this is something I actually do like about this
think
movie
about
a
your
lot.
thoughts.
So I'll pull back my excitement about how much I like that. But the way that's something very particular. And there's one scene, and it didn't come up to me until someone brought it up on social media, where Bill Hader playing Richie, he's
great.
just doing great. They're in a previously unestablished underground treehouse. That just kind of happens. They don't bring it up in the first movie.
Yeah, it's
a big don't worry about it. But it is a major plot point.
It is, I guess, yeah. Like I don't know if I kind of. It's weird how much I didn't care about that.
Yeah, I didn't care about it much, but it also was like...
No, I didn't mean like that it was in a bad way. Like I didn't mind that. Like I don't remember this in the first movie. Like, I didn't care.
It just kind of was like, okay, well, that's there.
A lot of great emotional moments happen
in that little spot. And that's like, I guess I don't need that established, but at the same time, like, why not establish it? You film these movies pretty concordantly, though I think there is some difference.
There's any number of scenes where they're hanging out where you could have them in the treehouse,
right?
And just set it there.
But there's a scene. There's a scene where Richie scares them a little bit, and he does the little dance that Bill Skarsgård does in the first one. Yeah. And then later, there's a scene where when they're going off on different directions to like, they're basically trying to find totems of their trauma with Pennywise to be able to bring it together for some ritual that Mike found out about.
Which makes you wonder, how did those Indians find out about that?
Well, that's kind of
they have to find their totems of trauma.
Well, that's the great subversion.
Pain in the ass.
That's the great subversion they did, is that because Stephen King was just like, what works? Native American rituals. And so they just kind of like just took that, and in this they almost parody it because it doesn't necessarily work. And it's like Mike finds out like, oh, it didn't work that way I thought it was. And I was like, that's a really nice change because that's kind of ridiculous to begin with. And so they just eschewed that entirely. But Richie does this little dance. And then later when he tries to terrify Richie with a giant Paul Bunyan zombie and other stuff, when he runs away, Pennywise does the little dance. Like he's like, don't you make fun of me. It's a great little Skarsgård. He's like pouting like, this is what I think about you too. I loved it. Yeah. It feels more personal.
Are you talking about the part where he's like, why won't you play with me or whatever?
And he does the little, he's like, I saw you make fun of me.
I like that fact. And I like, again, it goes back to like, we're still in bad, so I'll save this a little bit.
Yeah, this is still vaguely
I do
critical.
like the fact that, like, again, it kind of goes to how he is very smart at how he lures in children.
Mm-hmm. But as an adult, with these adults, it feels very petty, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of, because
it feels almost right that it's petty, though. Yeah. Because, like, animals are petty.
Yeah.
Like, lions will kill the cubs of the former lion who was in their harem or whatever.
Because it makes a very clear point that Pennywise is an extraterrestrial entity. He's an extraterrestrial creature who's been on Earth very much like The Thing, which there's a really great John Carpenter The Thing reference that happens because, well,
it turns into a spider.
It turns into a spider head, and Bill Hader says, you gotta be fucking kidding, just like in The Thing. Yeah. Because one of the reasons why Stan isn't in it much is because in all the film and the book and everything, Stan cannot work up his fear and commit suicide, and doesn't make it there. So that's why the actor who plays Stan isn't in it much, aside from the kid.
I found that to be very effective.
Yeah, it's real effective in the original film too.
Yeah,
where it's also played by an actor who's from The Thing. And just little
cool
trivia note.
It's nice.
So
any more things that like were bad that you thought we could like cut out or get rid of, or that just weren't effective to you?
Along with these little moments, aside from the scene where Jessica Chastain playing Beverly goes to the old lady's house and everything, and that was actually a really good scene. I feel like some characters and some actors got a little more juicy stuff to do and a better lines, and then some people really felt like they were just kind of phoning it in. And I would have liked if there had been more scenes of all of them together experiencing things as opposed to separate.
Yeah.
So the middle half got kind of stale for me because of that.
I agree with that.
And there is a through line for McAvoy trying to save this one kid.
Right.
And he fails at that, and that's kind of effective because it's like this, but it doesn't really affect him that much.
Yeah.
Because it's a mirroring of him losing his brother.
I thought they could have gone further.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, not that it's not perfectly horrible what happens, but like.
But it's like the scene with the other kid at the football game. That's scarier. That's really good freaky scene.
Yeah, and I love the way he's like, "Oh, fine, I guess you don't want to be my friend.
Play with me.
And he goes, people don't like playing with me because I have this thing. And he goes, no one likes playing with me because I'm ugly. And she goes, I don't think you're ugly. He's so perfectly manipulative, and it's really uncomfortable.
And that's, I think, is a choice. And I this is my projecting this character, is that he is being like an animal. In his idea, he's not intellectualizing. He
disguises himself as the prey to lure the prey. It's gross.
It's so frightening, and it again great throughout the whole thing. Speaking of Pennywise, one of the other things I like about this movie and don't like about it is the heavy use of what will be very dated CGI to really good creature designs. These creature designs are spectacular.
Like parts? What are you talking about?
Like, okay, so the old lady turns into a giant, horrifying hag monster, and it's a cool looking. It got me. I was like, oh, well, there it is. And it's a really good, freaky looking design.
But I think that the fact that it looks weird and dated is like almost part of
the CGI kind of makes it a little.
Yeah, that could that. Of course, it looks weird. And gross. What's it supposed to look like? How could it look more real? But
it's like I've looked at some of like the concept art from artists who were working on it, and there was some amazing. So Pennywise, being an extraterrestrial creature, is by the most kind of like with Lovecraft, it's like the closest thing our brains can represent of this is something
other
tangible.
Things we've already seen.
And in this, it's supposed to be a giant space spider.
That's why every time anyone sees like an H.P. Lovecraft, like anytime someone sees something that's like a very common theme in his books. I hate to get off a sidetrack, but like it's always the main character sees this unimaginable horror and is driven insane by it because he can't understand. And it's always written in a way like it was a horror that was undescribable or something like that.
A haunter out of time, something inhuman, and Pennywise or it is like that. It's just what we can estimate it is a giant space spider.
Yeah,
but they don't do that, and I like that they didn't do that.
Yeah, he is like a weird insectoid kind of creature.
They half and half him at the end. They make him half clown, half spider. Because in the book and in the film, he's just an out and out giant tarantula monster.
Yeah, which is not interesting.
Which kind of sad and dumb.
Getting back to the kid, there's something I wanted to say. Like when he kills the kid in the mirror maze, I'm really tired of mirror mazes in any horror movie ever. They're not like it's the same thing.
Man, that stuff was effective back in like Are You Afraid of the Dark? But
I'm just like it just feels
Zebo
like
the clown coming after you.
Like find something better. Like what's better is like that he has to watch the kid die, which is bad.
One of the things I did like about that funhouse sequence is that it's very clearly a funhouse that's manipulated by Pennywise, because it's like he has to go across the little like Chuck E. Cheese punching bag little things, and they're shaped like evil clowns. It's like, oh, he's affecting this location.
Yeah.
And I like stuff like that. It's very Silent Hill-ish, and I'm a big fan of that franchise. So.
Sure. When he finally kills the kid, and he's bashing his head, and it's really painful for James McAvoy. I thought that the fact that he just like bangs his head and the kid explodes into blood.
He does turn into jelly.
I thought what would have been better is if like he slowly eats the kid alive.
Yeah.
Would have been way better. Have you ever watched The Walking Dead?
No, I haven't seen the whole deal.
There's a scene in like season 4 or 5, and it's easily one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen, and it's really heart aching because it happens like between two characters who you really like, and one of them. So there's a character A, and there's character B, and there's character C, and character C is a dick and doesn't want to be on this scavenging zombie hunt thing.
Right.
And they're stuck in like a revolving door, and there's zombies behind them. And character A is on the outside trying to watch them, essentially, and he's trying to get them both out, but character C is such a piece of shit, he kind of moves his edge to where his friend is getting... Character B is getting moved back towards the zombies as his comes out.
Oh, no.
And what happens is like he gets out and the zombies get into the little sliver of character B's section of this revolving door, and they eat him alive. And it's really unpleasant to where it's like there's only like 2 or 3 zombies on him at first, but like they put their hands inside of his face.
Oh, they give him like the guy from Day of the Dead. They just like rip his guts open and everything.
Well, yeah, but it was really awful because you see his eyes slowly get ripped out, and like he's still alive and screaming the whole time, and it's so awful. And the other guy has to watch that happen, and it's just like there's nothing he can do.
Horrible.
Because if he breaks the glass, the zombies
They're going to come after him. It's all about the practicality
of it. He
of
can't really
it.
do anything.
Well, I understand why they wouldn't do that to a kid in it.
No, but I feel like that you could have done something like that.
Or you could even suggest it. There's a lot of horror that you can just suggest, and the actor can do all the work. Because McAvoy does a really good job of emoting his fear.
Maybe maybe he gets a hand of the kid, and like the kid's arm gets lopped off, like Georgie's, or whatever, and then he's left holding the arm, or like he's left holding the sleeve of his jacket or something, and his blood all over it.
Because a lot of that very emotional core of it, again, doesn't really have a through line.
Yeah,
like we don't see basically it's like it could have never even happened. Like you don't see the parents, you don't see any like a lot of the trauma and horror that happens around Derry. And this is something that's a little more focused on in the original movie and in the book, is that the adults in town either are purposely or just can't see not just the supernatural horror, but the
bad
moral horror that happens. And they don't focus on that enough in this film. And I think that's terrifying in itself. And not just can adults not help you, they are they might be hypnotized into can't helping you.
And there's a part. So I guess that's enough of the bads, because there's not a lot of bads that I can remember after this. There's a couple we'll get into when we get back to characters.
Yeah.
There's some weird parts in this movie that when Richie goes back, or Eddie goes back into the pharmacy. Was that dude masturbating? Do you remember when he goes in and he sees the old pharmacist?
The old pharmacist is there. I don't know. He's meant to be this, because it's suggested in the first one when the girl playing Beverly that he's a pedophile or something of something like that. He's a creep.
Yeah,
and that he's still alive. And he's still and Eddie's whole deal is, again, hypochondriac, and this guy is a disgusting pus monster man.
Yeah.
Because one of my favorite creature designs that runs through also is the leper, because the leper shows up in this scene again, followed by a hilarious when overcoming fear is the big theme of this.
Sure.
So he overcomes the fear of the leper in the dungeon of the pharmacy, which exists, and for a very short moment, it just does that "Just Call Me Angel" song. That I laughed, but I was like, why did they do that? That's just a weird little side note.
And I felt the same thing. It was
there was just there's some weird little moments.
If he's masturbating, I was like, I understand why. It's to make the people of this town are weird and gross creeps, especially the adults, and you can't trust them or anything.
But that's just one character.
Yeah,
and then
I'm 99% sure he was, because he's jerking his hand.
He's in a corner, just
and I was okay. And I was and it's meant to just be weird.
Yeah.
Unresolved things. It's in the movie. It's handled very clumsily. I'm not saying it's bad. James McAvoy is a screenwriter / book writer. He's a book writer turned screenwriter.
He's writing a Stephen King stand-in.
Sure.
Stephen King wrote him to be him.
Yeah, and he's essentially he's working on a set of a movie, and the people don't like it that he can't
Peter
write
Bogdanovich.
Endings. And
the classic Hollywood director Peter Bogdanovich. Yeah. Is directing his movie.
Yeah, and he's criticized that he can't write an ending. And he's like, well, sometimes
everyone's
in life,
your endings suck.
Yeah, you don't ever get closure, but that's never really brought back into the movie in a way that I feel is
they double it.
First of all, he does kind of get closure.
Yeah.
He tells his younger self it wasn't your fault. You were just a kid. You wanted to stay inside and play by yourself.
Unless
for one
that's
day.
Sort of the point, but it's doubled down a little bit because Stephen King is a character in this. He has a cameo, but it's more. Yeah. It's more than a cameo. I mean, it's literally he just gets dialogue, which is in canon, because if you go back to a lot of Stephen King's adaptations, he's in a lot of them.
Yeah,
he's in. I don't think he's in Carrie, but he's in the original Pet Sematary. He's in Silver Bullet. He's in a bunch of other stuff. He's not in The Shining, clearly, because he hates that movie, but that's a whole different side note. Yeah. But he's in this, and he has this whole thing about I've got your book. Your book sucked too, and it's
Well, he said I didn't like the ending.
I didn't like the ending, and apparently it's supposed to be based on criticism of people saying Stephen King doesn't write good endings, and it's okay, weird meta narrative, but again, doesn't pay off. It just seems like an inside joke.
Yeah, and
weirdly tonal,
and he has a wife in the movie.
Yep,
James McAvoy.
It doesn't really come to anything.
He kisses Beverly again, and that's never brought up. Is he
and
okay with his wife?
Beverly's abusive husband, who is this mirror for her abusive father, is a bigger character in the book. He literally is also, like Bowers, is infected by Pennywise's power and comes to kill her and is dispatched in the book and in the original movie. He is not in this movie. you have to assume that
which I felt was fine.
it's fine, but also like that seemed like a really intense situation, and for it just to be over, it's kind of like, well, I don't want to see. Obviously, I don't want to see the divorce.
Yeah.
But it's like,
But my point is like things that are
strict
brought up here.
adherence to this book's plot is its biggest fumble.
Yes, and
You
also
could drop so
like,
much.
I don't know if the bad ending thing is like part of the adherence to the plot, but like
I don't even know if
it's
that's really
nev-
a through line in the book.
It's never resolved, and I feel like why give him a wife at all to tell him that like, oh, like you don't write good endings. I pretended to like him. It feels like squandered screen time and squandered. I'm not the actress who played his wife was fine, but like
it is kind of like it's a deleted scene that's in this movie.
or something. And look,
Like, I
I'm all
understand,
for,
like, the
I'm all
scene-
for like giving as much depth to these characters as you can.
Yeah. Like, I understand the scene where it's like, where we see Eddie is married to essentially a version of his mother.
Yeah.
And his mother is played by an actress in a ridiculously gigantic prosthetic suit and is like, Eddie, you can't go out there and it's too dangerous. It's played by the same actress. The actress who plays his mother in as a kid is the same actress who plays his wife in this.
When she's his mom, she's wearing a big suit.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
she's wearing a giant.
That's clever.
Yeah, I thought that was very
I like
interesting.
that they can't get away from those things. I just wish some of them had were done more artfully and were wrapped up better.
Again, I absolutely agree because
There's a reference that Bill Hader's character might be homosexual.
same with Eddie.
Yeah, or both of them.
Both
I
of
guess.
them.
But I think it leans harder on Bill Hader,
It does.
and it's never brought up again.
Because one of the
And it's
things is
never-
Eddie gets killed
Yeah.
at the end during the final confrontation with Pennywise.
Yeah.
He is killed, and it is a moment of horror for Richie because it is not talked about, but it is subtle enough that Richie is unmarried, is a successful comedian, has all his whole thing. He's a really this is a very delicate thing because it's like there's more I wanted from that, and I feel like I don't know why you couldn't go further into it because it's 2019.
I don't see any
The
reason
idea
you
that
couldn't.
Richie's character wouldn't be an out character in 2019, like I get Derry. Derry is clearly this regressive hellhole.
Yeah.
But it's like this
in
idea that
LA
he's got
doing
this
comedy
secret closeting. I don't know if it's referenced in the book, but it feels
or that he's even implied that he might be gay.
and it never says it. It just says Pennywise knows his secret, and that there's like a carving that's like E plus R,
Yeah,
and it's
there's a part like that's I feel like they hint at it so subtly it may not even be there. Do you know what I mean? Like
it might as well not.
Yeah, and
Because
there's a part where I'm asking myself, there's a part where it shows him as a kid playing with one of Bauer's cousins at the video game,
and it's suggested that that in this awkward like hey, don't you want to play a little more? And he's like, you're being weird.
But it implies that Bowers comes in and sees that, and it's less that he's a closeted about his sexuality as much as it's like the worst thing as a kid to be called by another boy is the F-bomb or whatever
is to have your
and it's used that and look they use that in the earlier hate crime in the movie, so I feel like it's intentional.
It does feel that
spoiler
way.
alert, the opening hate crime is two gay people are brutally gay person is they're both brutally beaten one
and
is
then they
murdered.
throw one. Well, they don't try to murder him. They do throw him over.
For all they knew, they killed
and
him.
then Pennywise kills him.
Yeah, eats his liver or whatever.
That's pretty
but
intense.
And my point is that was a great opening too. It's a really horrific opening.
And there's a great shot where the poor guy's boyfriend looks up and under the overpass, and you just see all the balloons just roll out. Really, good and cold open.
So
just
it
really
opens
brutal.
with a homosexual hate crime. It implies that Richie's afraid of being called that, and then Richie, that's Bill Hader's character.
Richard's,
so that's not like resolved, and at the end of the movie, and again at the end of the movie, they're all sitting in the water and they all give Bill Hader a big hug.
Yeah, almost they're almost baptizing themselves because they defeat Pennywise clearly, and how they defeat Pennywise is very similar to, and that's one thing where it took a little too long. It's like they tried something, it failed. They tried something, it failed. They tried something, it failed, and then they finally realized belief. If I've got a stick, this stick is a spear. Not only is that, this stick can kill Pennywise, and their belief destroys him. I love it. It's great because they do tear his heart out, and they destroy his heart, and you see this entity of maliciousness towards children be defeated by childhood jeering and bullying.
Essentially.
Yeah, and it's
the same thing that they're afraid of,
right?
Because they were all bullied.
Because they turn around and just say, "You're nothing but a clown." Yeah. And to quote one of my favorite tweets, the greatest thing to call somebody is "Who's this clown?" Because one, it's calling them a clown. Two, it's saying it's a clown they've never heard of. Yeah. And that's what they do to Pennywise. They say, "Who's this clown?" And eventually he melts and is destroyed for all time. There's no. That's why I like it is. It's literally bookends.
Yeah.
Pennywise is not coming back. He's destroyed, and we end this franchise, which is nice. But yeah,
there's all these little things that not for every character, mostly for James McAvoy, for Bill Hader. Even though I think Bill Hader is probably the best performance or whatever.
He's
I
spectacular.
feel like that little thing just makes me go, why is that in there? Make it a little more overt. What's going to happen?
And I I think you and I probably have the same thing where we're just like, oh, if it was up to me, I would lean into this. But I'm like, I have an opinion about it. Obviously, as someone who doesn't live the gay experience, I'm like, it's not really my place to imprint to say what I want from this. But I feel like there was so much more that they could have done with bringing up something that's not referenced in the first film with the young actors. It's not referenced at all. It just comes in this time. Yeah. And it's like, while a lot of the trauma that you
think they were worried that that these young actors want to be tied to their characters might be gay in the next film or something? Because I don't think they care.
Because later
they're also
Finn Wolfhard
in this movie.
Yeah, because Finn Wolfhard plays that character in that, and it's like it's very interesting because in the first movie. And actually, this is, oh, wait a minute. I just remembered something. In the first movie, after we see everybody else experience Pennywise's trauma, Richie says, I didn't see anything. We don't see what happened with Richie. We see it in chapter 2 at the arcade.
But was that so? But did his character experience any trauma? No, he did. He experienced the Paul Bunyan thing, doesn't he?
As an adult. Does he experience as a kid too? I don't remember.
I can't remember.
The only flashback we see of any moment where Richie gets his emotional connection is in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Because in chapter 1 he's like, well, nothing happened to me, and he just kind of goes along with it because obviously he sees the same horrors they do.
Yeah, but that's weird because Pennywise claims I know your secret, but we never know what the secret is.
It's alluded that he's gay.
Yeah, but I feel like
but it doesn't lean into it enough.
Why play it so close to the chest?
Yeah, especially why if it was something like he was out,
if he was crime. I mean, why not?
If he was an out character in Hollywood and all that, and then he returns to Derry, and the fear of being that is something Pennywise feeds on.
I would even say that's
more compelling.
I would say that probably would be more compelling. I would just say at the end of his life, just let him have a moment of clarity. It was I was in love with Richie.
Eddie, yeah.
Richie was in love with Eddie. Yeah. And I never did anything and I never said anything and I let people's fears make me a worse person.
And I feel like the emotion that Hader does sells that. It's just unspoken.
Yeah. And it could be the silent dignity thing. I feel like this is a reason where I'm not saying, sometimes less is more, but this is an instance where a heavier hand is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's where tell versus show, especially in a very telly story, is fine.
Yeah. So let's get down to filmmaking is all about the good filmmaking will leave you with a lot of great moments. So I just want to talk about any of our favorite moments from the movie period, whether they're character, action-y based on an action movie or music based or just the total package, like I said, coming together. I really liked Beverly and Ben. And the way where he finally comes out to saying that he loved her and that he was the person that she was supposed to be in love with or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it implies I thought she knew that. Because at the end of the first one, she
didn't know she didn't know it was him that wrote the poem.
Yeah.
The your hair is like November fire, autumn fire, January. Yeah. She thinks that McAvoy's character.
I have to rewatch the first one. Yeah. I gotta rewatch it. Anyway, but I really liked that, and I liked the end is it's like the cinematography work and the work of the actors and the music and all coming together when she pushes him under the water and she gives him the kiss. Mm-hmm. I felt a really great sense of closure. Yeah. Two people got what they deserved. She gets a person that loves her dearly, and he gets a person that always saw him as someone who was great.
Which is why that Lord of the Rings denouement, several endings, is so good because we get to see most of the characters' emotional conclusions.
And it makes me look at it makes me wonder why what's his name, Bill, but played by James McAvoy, like they have a kiss earlier, and it makes me wonder why it's there, or why like. Are they misleading us? Or does Bill maybe like her, but Bill's married? Why include his wife if we're going to have this love triangle?
They kiss when they're young, and
I remember that.
And then you can see Ben being like, "Oh, that sucks,"
That's supposed to be me.
and then things change over time and everything.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder, like.
But they're also.
How does James McAvoy feel? Because he might like her. Like they don't quite handle all these little things as good as they should. It's still a great movie.
It's still and I've already talked about a few of my favorite scenes, and I'll bring one last little thing that I did like.
Yeah, pick any great moments you want to talk about. Quick or long, it doesn't matter.
So even though the pacing of the you have to go and get your tokens thing is very rough,
video game-ish,
like, oh, you have to go to the apartment level, you have to go to the park level. It's still got us some good creature designs, and we get some good reactions to those creature designs, and there are some legitimately so the Paul Bunyan monster that chases after Bill Hader is really dumb.
Yeah, so good.
But
I love it.
There's a great shot when Pennywise is fucking with them, and you turn the camera around, and there's a crowd in the background that just sort of like freeze out and then turn and start like dancing a little bit. It's good. Like there are these little creepy little moments that work better than the big things. But
another great creepy moment was after Beverly goes to the old lady or whatever. She goes, "My father came here, blobbity blobbity," and it implies that like you see the picture of Bill Skarsgård, and it's basically him. And you're made to wonder, like, oh, so has he been a human? Like, has he been like having sex with people and having weird human offspring? What's going on? And like, there's a part where like you see him in that little back of what looks like a circus, I don't know, wagon. Yeah. And he's like, he has a really great scene chewing performance where he's like, you think you saved them, and he goes, you haven't saved anything, you haven't stopped any of it. And you see him like smush his makeup, and like these little cracks come.
It's like his human skin is makeup, and he's like tearing his eyes. It's good.
I remember that moment.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
and it's
pretty
also a good acting moment from Skarsgård because he's breaking the usual personality that Pennywise has.
He's being kind of serious in a way,
and it's like
he's not he's tormenting her, but he's being like he's tormenting her on a personal level. But before it's just like, I'm jeering at you, and I know what you're afraid about and insecure about, and I'm gonna bully you for it.
And now he's just like, I take this personally. Yeah, you stopped me, and don't think you can do it again. And I like that. Again, he gets some of the best parts in it.
Yeah, he really does.
And one last thing I'll say about it that it's like, again, strict adherence to it is the whole thing that they're able to see about what Pennywise is through Native American rituals, sort of things. Like, Pennywise was defeated hundreds of years ago before by other dangerous rituals. And it works in the book. It doesn't work in the film. And I was like, I kind of like that because it takes away from this kind of like, oh, mystical Native American rituals. And it's like, you don't know a lot about that. You're just kind of putting that in there because it sounds exotic.
Yeah, you just take his word for it as the writer.
And they subvert the exoticism by saying, like, of course you don't know what it is.
He's not just an alien. He's an interdimensional being. So, like, whatever rules of this dimension, how do you know it applies to him? How would the Native Americans know? And also, it didn't work because they killed them. They killed the Indians.
And they divorce it enough from the King universe where it's like, oh, Pennywise is also the same creature as another creature from the Dark Tower series.
Yeah,
everything's connected.
Stephen King's universe exists in the Dark Tower
Randall
universe.
Flagg is hanging around somewhere when they make
by the way, apparently we're getting a movie about The Stand,
which is where Randall Flagg is the big arch villain of the
who is supposed to be the Man in Black in the Dark Tower,
the Man in the Desert, and also there's Man in Black in the desert, in The Stand. He's
Have
the
you
man
read
in the
any
desert.
of those?
Nope.
No.
I need to read The Stand. Everyone says The Stand is amazing.
The ultimate tale of good and evil.
But it's also he's going to be played by
Peter
Skarsgård.
That is his name. But yeah, the older brother. Who I think actually it might be well cast for that. I could see him as a
and talk about Bill Skarsgård is also in the Hulu series. It's based Castle Rock, which is a anthology.
If
Stephen
Hitler won
King.
something?
Nope, that's you're thinking of Man in the High Castle.
Oh, never mind.
Castle Rock is set in the King universe in the town of Castle Rock, which is in a couple of. It's where the Shawshank prison is.
See Shawshank and like there's references like I think the Green Mile or something is in it or something. Yeah,
and one of the characters is who's played by an actress I can't recall, is Jack Torrance's like niece. Like he's like, oh, my uncle is like crazy and like killed a bunch of it. It's like, oh, she's Jackie Torrance.
Yeah.
And it's like, but Bill Skarsgård's in that too, where he plays like kind of this like notorious strange character, and it's like interesting connection there. They're doing a second season of it that's going to be more primarily based on Misery.
Oh yeah.
So you get some of that in there. It's okay. Either way, the Skarsgårds are all the enemies in the King universe, apparently.
Yeah.
So you want to get any last thoughts on?
Sure. Oh, I loved the moment when at the very end. Again, I'm a sucker for like good character arcs and emotionality, because like Mike's character felt like he didn't get a character arc, and I can't like,
especially as a kid.
but at the very end they kind of give him one. Yeah. Which enough of one that makes me say, like, I'll accept that.
Because he feels responsible for being the one to, like, he has to call everyone to come back in.
He never leaves.
The only
so
one
his character
who stayed.
literally stayed still.
Yeah.
And then Bill Hader's James McAvoy's character, I felt kind of was in search of a character arc. I feel like he got one with talking to his younger self and said, like, it's not your fault.
Not your fault.
Not the most interesting character arc, but good enough for me.
It kind of drops a little bit.
But at the end of the movie, Mike calls him, and there's this nice little beat, great little acting beat, where they get the letter from Stanley and they read, and he goes, I wouldn't be strong enough.
Something different is they give Stanley this little afterlife where he writes a pre-suicide note
to all of them.
To all of them, that kind of brings back him as a part of it. Like, it's like, I knew I wouldn't be there. I knew I wouldn't make it.
I'd be too scared.
I'd be too scared.
It would divide you. And
So-
you guys needed to be together, so that's why I took myself off the board.
Right.
And there's this nice little beat, and
Which that was added. That's not in the book.
yeah. And Mike says, "I love you, man," and James McAvoy goes, "I love you too." And I was like, "Feels right. Feels
Yeah.
good."
And they're kind of like, I hope I don't forget you after we leave. And it's like, he's like, I don't know if it's going to be one of those things now that
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah, and Mike packs up and leaves the library for the first time or whatever.
And
like,
he,
that felt
he gets
good.
to have his life back too.
Yeah. Everyone got, like, I feel like everyone got a character arc, just some are stronger than others.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more to say.
I will say, once the film is over and everything's out, I think what would make it really good, and this is probably something they're not going to do, this is going to have to be like a fan edit, is take both the movies and do it like the book, where flashback, modern day, flashback, modern day, flashback, modern day, and just make it like a 4-hour, 5-hour long like thing. I think you're going to get something really good there.
Hey, like, pony up $50,000-$60,000, hire a Hollywood editor, you know.
Hire what's his name from that 70s show who made the special editions of Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
No, he did the special editions of the prequels.
Yeah.
And
he takes out all the stuff.
yeah, I can't remember the actor's name. He's really good because he was also in Black Klansman. But
Topher Grace.
Topher Grace.
Yeah.
He's like an armchair editor who's like apparently really good. Give it to him. Have them re-edit this to be the ultimate It cut.
Yeah, the great thing about editors too is, like, or good ones at least, is like a lot of editors, they dabble in other parts of the filmmaking process. So instead of being editors, they're also sound editors. So they'll have temp music and sounds of footsteps and stuff, so they can get you really close to.
And the sound is good in this. There's a lot of good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good.
Sound is the hardest part of
Foley work. And
sound
things
is the
like
hardest
that.
part of almost any movie.
Because I think the biggest thing about this is both these films were so really competently made. They're both
good.
solid movies.
Like that little shot at the end where, like, they're riding their bikes in slow mo and the music wells up, and I was like, it's like I call it the whole package. When a shot and the music and the acting and the character and the build up has come to mean a bigger, like, where what you're looking at is what you're looking at it is bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yep, I like it, and that's where you know it's like. There is a heart and soul in here, and clearly it works. The whole, I
can't wait to tell you about all the ones in Batman v Superman, baby.
So all in all, It Chapter 1 and 2, the whole book, good. I think it will have a long afterlife. I think it'll be something like 10 years down the line. Kids will still like rent from streaming. I guess they won't go to the video store, but they'll rent from streaming and watch. I
hope that like it. I hope it beats like the miniseries as the preferred watch. Like, a lot of people really love that Tim Curry one,
and it's a lot of nostalgia because it's definitely not as good.
I think this is.
There
better.
are things that are. Oh, it's definitely better.
It's as long, if not longer.
I think they both will inherit this like little zones. Like they're both like there are because I watched the original recently, and there are definitely good things about it, and there's a lot of bad things.
What's the worst things about it for you then?
The adult parts, just the actors, John Ritter and everybody
John
else
Ritter's
were
in it.
just really poor. But when you're the kids, what makes it work is because it's still set in the 60s. It's taking dialogue directly from King's book. And the costume design is great. The way they talk is perfect. Little Seth Green is Richie Tozier in it, and he's really great in it. And then he becomes Harry Anderson from Night Court. It's not that good. The kids part of the 90s part is really good, just like in chapter 1. But the whole package you don't get, unlike like you do with Machete's movie.
Yeah,
Mr.
I feel like I want to see what he does after this. I hope he doesn't do another horror movie, because he did a movie before this called Mama, which is almost a good movie. And
is that the?
It has the Game of Thrones dude in it, Jamie Lannister.
Oh wait, is that the horror, the Guillermo del Toro one? No, it's a different one.
Yeah,
are you sure?
It's called Mama or Ma or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Came out like 5-6 years ago, maybe.
Okay, I might be thinking of something different, because there was one with not Jessica Chastain. I think it might have been somebody.
She's in it though.
Oh no, it is. It's the one where they adopt the two kids and they were raised by the ghost.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That was originally based. That Del Toro produced that one.
No, yeah,
I didn't know he directed. I thought it was a Spanish crew.
Yeah, he directed
or a Mexican
that
crew.
movie, and I think it's based off of a short that he thought of or something.
It's a short. It's a
and
it's a
pretty
Latin. It's a Latino short. It's either Mexican. It's either from Mexico or Spain. It's a great little short. It's a little spooky thing, and then they make this extended movie, which is okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. Movie.
But like, there was pieces in that where I was like, man, he could probably make a good movie if he just had like the right thing. Like this was his right thing. Yeah, off the back of this, he got offers to do Robotech, like a Robotech movie, and like all sorts of big budget, like not horror things. Yeah. And he decided to do The Flash, which is cool.
That's cool
because I
offered Robotech. That's big
given
stuff.
how visually pleasing this movie is to look at. Sometimes, like I would love to see like the visualness of a Flash movie, and how he would handle that.
Well, he clearly is a director who has heart and has patience and gets good people in his crew. Yeah, because altogether these movies are just they are, again, more than the sum of their parts. They aren't just a horror movie. It's also a coming of age film. It's an adventure film.
Yes, my favorite parts about this movie are like the emotionality and like how like when Stanley dies, I was heartbroken, because I was like, I didn't think that like that would happen to him, and like I haven't read the book, so I didn't see that coming. But like, I was like, man, your trauma can stay with you, and one phone call can end your life.
Yeah,
and
then for all the other characters, they're like, we are now slightly handicapped. Now we are not full. Yeah, and they have to somehow work their confidence to realize they can do it.
Yeah, like whether or not I'm scared, like there's moments that I was like, even if I'm not like jumping in my seat, like
there are a couple of good jump scares.
I might have turned to my girlfriend watched with me, like when the under the bleachers scene with the little girl. I turned to her and I was like, that was good. And I was like, I did stuff like that.
There were a few moments where I was like, oh, that was good, and then there were a few moments where I was like, oh yeah, I was like, yeah, good spooky creatures.
Yeah, and like it's easier to say because it has a nice happy ending. I mean, it's bittersweet because we lose some of them, but like
evil is destroyed.
Yeah, as opposed to a movie like, it's easy to look at a horror movie like Hereditary, which does not get a happy ending.
No. Or something like something like the Conjuring films, where it's like you may have a happy ending, but it's in a bigger universe. Like something's gonna come back, and there's gonna be a sequel hook. There's no sequel hook here. It's just two-part, and we're done.
And I also feel like this movie is like the anti-Hereditary, where it's like not only do you get happy endings, but it's all about the indomitable will of the human spirit to overcome and to triumph in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas Hereditary is
cynical.
Like,
it's not a cynical film.
Which is not to say that I think
not to say Hereditary is cynical.
Yeah, if you asked Ari Aster, like it's a cynical movie. I don't think he's a cynical filmmaker. No. But I would be like, these are like these are the two
horror.
Yeah, they're two opposite ends of the horror spectrum. Whereas one is, I may not find, one is scarier to me, but this one I might like more, if that makes sense.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mike Flanagan, who did Oculus and also did The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Oculus. Is that the one with
Karen Gillian from
Nebula from
yes.
the Avengers movies.
Amy Pond from Doctor Who. and then he did The Haunting of Hill House, which also has that kind of
It's
like
on Netflix. I haven't seen that.
Oh,
People
it's
love
good.
that.
It's good.
Is it scary?
It's got some good moments in it, but mostly, again, it's a story about the human spirit at its lowest and a family trying to overcome their real demons while there are actual good ghosts running around.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I highly recommend it, especially for Halloween season.
Right.
And season 2 has been announced. It's going to be based on The Turn of the Screw. So apparently it's going to be an anthology series about famous haunted houses in literature. So this was about the Haunting of Hill House.
All right.
And then the next one's going to be The Haunting of the House Bly, which is in The Turn of the Screw, the Henry James novel.
All right. Well, that sounds
I hope
super.
I hope to get the haunted the Belasco house from Hell House,
All right.
which is Richard Matheson, which is a good fucked up ghost story.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
it all sounds like
Yeah.
great stuff to check out.
More spooky things to come as October continues.
I hope so. Hopefully, there'll be another good horror movie we can squeeze in there.
think
I
so.
don't dabble in horror a lot because a lot of it.
I've been meaning to watch Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I've actually heard some good things about that.
Yeah,
one.
I heard it's like funny in like a PG, or it's good in like a PG-13ish way.
Yeah, like a good PG-13 horror, but again, great creature designs.
But I felt that like I don't watch a lot of horror movies because a lot of them just kind of bore me and
That's
it's the same thing. But this one's pretty good. You should check it out.
It's gonna stand the test of time, I think.
I think so as well. This has been Movie Date Podcast, a movie podcast for people who like movies, don't want to be too smug about it. I have been Rob.
And I'm Matt.
And next week we are doing the big one, the magnum opus, from which no podcast episode will come back from.
And we'll somehow we'll get past that.
Hopefully. I like to think we'll do better stuff than this. I've been chewing on it for a long time, and I've got notes upon notes. It's going to be long, so just prepare.
If we can
pee before you come, Matt.
If we can all float down here, we can make it to the top.
Yeah, he's going to come.
Superman.
We're going to watch BVS, the Ultimate
we're gonna
Edition.
Watch it together,
and we're gonna go through some of it. And I genuinely, I don't know your feelings on it right now. Maybe we'll save that for the beginning of the next episode.
They're definitely on the lower end of enthusiasm.
Okay, great.
Considering this is kind of also a bookending because we watched it together in theaters.
That's right. We saw the theatrical version. I saw it
with
in
your
theaters,
brother.
Just to give you an idea, I saw the theatrical version, not just the Ultimate Edition. The theatrical version, saw it like 5 times.
Yeah,
that's how much I liked it.
I've only seen it when you and I watched it together in theaters with your brother.
Yeah,
and then we are now coming back together to watch the Ultimate Edition together.
Yeah, and I hope
as fates entwined.
My best outcome is like I genuinely just want to have a fun discussion about it because I think it's rife with content. Mm-hmm. It's a controversial director. It's a controversial movie,
and I don't know how much my feelings are going to change. I'm going to try to be as like. Not swayed by your enthusiasm. I'm going to be a little. I'm going to try to be a little more Taurus bullheaded, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if you get a chance,
I'm excited.
Yeah, and we're going to watch the director's cut together, and like I'll probably throw in some commentary. Like this is way different than the original one.
That's fair.
And yeah, like I think it'll be a good old time, and we'll see if I can make the right arguments, or at least maybe I'll change your mind on the view of the movie. Hopefully,
and it will be. Much like it, a 3-hour long.
It is. It's exactly 3 hours long.
The edit, you're going to go through it like, nothing's out. We changed nothing.
Yeah, there are stuff they cut out of the Ultimate Edition that I'll bring up. But like, they're just little things here and there. Yeah, you should watch the theatrical edition.
First?
Yeah, maybe just like when you go home, just to like catch back up on it. And then like that way you'll have the differences will be more fresh when you see them.
We'll take a little look into it.
We're done, baby. If you want to contact us, hit us up on Facebook with messages, or you can email us at rzmoviecast@gmail.com, and we can answer your questions there. Any of that stuff. Yeah, this is it. Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.